Chapter 353. During this trip to the Qin clan, Ningya and Qin Chuan had not only clarified what the Qin clan wanted, but also set the time to enter the carefree secret realm. Qin Chuan needed to arrive at North Setting Mountain, which was 1,200 kilometers north of Star Dragon City, 3 days before the Little Demon's secret realm opened. From there, he would enter the carefree secret realm through the teleportation array. After leaving the Qin clan, Qin Chuan turned around and looked at the red door behind him. He pursed his lips and said to Ningya, "Teacher, sooner or later, I will give this door to you as a gift." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Ningya smiled and said, "All right, I will wait for that day." Qin clan's guest hall. Qin Yiming looked at the scenery outside the door and asked the housekeeper beside him, "How is Haoshuan's recovery?" "Young master's injuries have all healed, but he is not in a good mood." The housekeeper respectfully answered Qin Yiming's question. "Not in a good mood? I think he is in a bad mood." Qin Yiming sighed and said, "Ever since that day, I have not dared to see Haoshuan. I am afraid that Haoshuan will blame me for not helping him take back the dragon soul. He will blame me for being useless as a father." If Qin Chongshao had not stepped forward to stop him, he would not have let Qin Chuan escape so easily that day. Once we obtain the key to the carefree secret realm, Haoshuan will definitely rise again. Qin Yiming clenched his fists, his eyes filled with determination. He would not let his son sink down like this. Buzz! The flying ship slowly rose into the air and flew out of Star Dragon City. Qin Chuan stood in front of the porthole and looked at the bustling Star Dragon City. He was somewhat emotional. Since leaving the Black Moon Combat Academy, it had been close to 2 months. He had experienced many things and matured a lot. He was fortunate, but at the same time unfortunate. "Boss, how many people do you think will be qualified to enter the carefree secret realm in 3 months? Chen Chongxing walked to Qin Chuan's side and curiously asked Qin Chuan, "Who do you think will be able to go?" Qin Chuan came back to his senses. He glanced at Chen Chongxing and said, "If you have something to ask, just ask. Don't beat around the bush." Chen Chongxing chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, "Boss is indeed the boss, seeing through my thoughts so easily. Actually, I'm here to ask you on behalf of some thin-skinned people. What are your plans for the next 3 months?" "I don't know yet." Qin Chuan thought for a while and said, "Maybe I'll go out for a walk." "Go out for a walk?" Chen Chongxing asked in surprise. "You want to travel around the world, perhaps?" Qin Chuan looked calmly at the Star Dragon City that was gradually disappearing from the window. He said softly, "I have seen the prosperity of this world and the cruelty of this world. There is no reason for me to stay in this corner of the world." With Qin Chuan's current situation, he might not be able to learn anything if he continued to stay in the Black Moon Combat Academy. It would be better for him to travel outside and broaden his horizons. Chen Chongxing scratched his head and asked, "Boss, are you planning to go on your own?" "The journey is long, and my sword is my only companion." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Chen Chongxing, "Everyone has their own path to walk. There is no need to compromise yourself and accommodate others." Chen Chongxing understood. He grinned at Qin Chuan and said, "Boss, I understand." In the next 2 days, Qin Chuan did not appear in the public area of the spacecraft. Instead, he locked himself in his room and focused on cultivating the thunder-devouring art and the dragonization art. Knock, knock, knock. A series of knocks on the door woke up Qin Chuan from his cultivation. He slowly opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the door. He said, "Please come in." As Qin Chuan's voice fell, the door was pushed open from the outside. Lu Zi stood at the door and looked at Qin Chuan, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed. She said, "We will arrive at the Elven City in 10 minutes. I am here to inform you." Qin Chuan smiled when he heard this. He said, "Time really flies. I didn't expect that we would have already returned to the Elven City." "Yes." Lu Zi was also somewhat emotional. "Time really flies." Qin Chuan stood up from the bed and said to Lu Zi, "Accompany me for a walk outside." Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan with some surprise. She did not expect Qin Chuan to invite her for a walk outside. Perhaps he had something to say to her. Qin Chuan and Lu Zi walked side by side in the quiet corridor. Qin Chuan looked ahead and asked Lu Zi, "The person who asked Chen Chongqing to ask me about my future plans that day should be you, right?" Lu Zi nodded gently when she heard Qin Chuan's words. She was indeed the one who asked Chen Chongqing to ask Qin Chuan about his future plans that day. "I understand your intentions, but I don't want you to accommodate me too much." Qin Chuan turned to Lu Zi and said to Lu Zi very seriously, "You should have your own dreams and things that you want to accomplish. If you spend all your thoughts on me, you will gradually lose yourself." Lu Zi lowered her head and did not move forward. After a while, she looked up at Qin Chuan again and asked seriously, "Do you like me?" Qin Chuan did not know how to answer Lu Zi's sudden question. When she saw Qin Chuan fall silent, Lvz's charming face revealed a wisp of a bitter smile, and she said in a low voice, "I understand your answer." With that, Lu Zi took 2 steps forward and walked past Qin Chuan. With her back facing Qin Chuan, she said in a hoarse voice, "Thank you, Qin Chuan." Qin Chuan stood in place and watched Lu Zi's figure disappear into the corridor. He lowered his head and looked at the tears on the floor. He could not help but reveal a complicated expression. "That girl is crying so sadly. Don't you plan to go after her and comfort her?" Ningya's figure appeared behind Qin Chuan at some point. She looked at Qin Chuan with interest and teased, "Since you don't like her, why did you live with her in the first place? You made all the teachers and students in the school think that the two of you have an ambiguous relationship." Qin Chuan turned around and looked at Ningya helplessly. He asked, "Teacher, don't make fun of me at this time." "All right then. Let's get down to business." Ningya looked at Qin Chuan with a serious expression. "Do you plan to return to the school to rest before leaving, or do you plan to leave as soon as you land?" "I'll leave as soon as I land." Qin Chuan thought for a moment and answered truthfully. He knew that there were many people in the school waiting for him to return. There was a grand celebration waiting for him. However, he had no interest in these things at the moment. The only thing on his mind was how to improve his strength as soon as possible. Ningya looked as if she had expected this. She sighed softly and said, "It seems that I shouldn't have told you about that matter so early. You rejected Lu Zi's feelings because you were worried that you would implicate her." Qin Chuan did not answer Ningya's question. There were some things that did not need to be explained too clearly. Chapter 354. The sky gradually darkened. Qin Chuan, who had traveled a long way, finally stood by the Dragon Spirit Lake. Looking at the clear lake water in front of him, a complicated look flashed across Qin Chuan's eyes. Whoosh! The calm surface of the lake suddenly tumbled and strangely split open from the middle, revealing a passageway large enough for one person to pass through. Seeing the passageway appear, Qin Chuan took a step forward and slowly walked in. Returning to the bottom of the Dragon Spirit Lake after a few months, Qin Chuan's mood was somewhat complicated. He looked at the huge dragon figure entrenched on the ruins at the bottom of the lake and said softly, "Senior Song Hao." Song Hao looked at Qin Chuan calmly and asked, "Young man, why are you here this time?" Qin Chuan pursed his lips and replied, "I've seen Qin Chongxiao's grandson. I've already fought with him." Hearing Qin Chuan's reply, Song Hao, who was originally calm, suddenly became agitated. He moved closer to Qin Chuan and asked through gritted teeth, "You killed him? Did you avenge my son?" "No." Qin Chuan shook his head. "I defeated him, but I didn't kill him." Boom! An extremely terrifying pressure suddenly descended and pressed down on Qin Chuan's body like a towering mountain. In an instant, Qin Chuan's face turned pale and revealed a painful expression. "Why didn't you kill him?" Song Hao roared angrily, "He deserved to die." Qin Chuan did not speak. He only extended his hand to Tsang Hao and presented the dragon soul in his palm to Tsang Hao. When the furious Tsang Hao saw the dragon soul in Qinchuan's hand, he was completely stunned. His golden eyes were filled with astonishment, surprise, pain, and sorrow. He probably did not expect Qinchuan to bring back Tsang Qing's dragon soul. I didn't kill Qin Haoshuan, but I brought back the dragon soul. Qinchuan pursed his lips and said to Tsang Hao, "You chose me to avenge you because you saw the blood relationship between me and Qin Chongshao, right?" Tsang Hao did not immediately answer Qinchuan's question. With a shake of his body, he transformed into the image of a middle-aged man in green clothes. He stretched out his hand and took Tsang Qing's dragon soul from Qinchuan's hand. He carefully held it in his palm and said in a hoarse voice, "My original intention was to let you and Qin Haoshuan fight each other and let Qin Chongshao send off his son. I didn't expect it to turn out like this." When Qin Chuan heard that, he could not help but reveal an expression of, as expected. If Tsang Hao had not noticed the blood relationship between him and Qin Chongshao, perhaps Tsang Hao would have killed him directly back then. "You brought back Qing Er's dragon soul, so you have completed what I asked you to do. I will help you remove the restriction in your body." Tsang Hao took a deep look at Qinchuan and waved his hand. A green fluorescent light floated out from Qinchuan's body and fell into his hand. At this moment, Qinchuan felt that his body was much more relaxed than before. He felt comfortable all over. This restriction in your body has the side effect of hindering your cultivation. Now that I have removed the restriction, you will not be affected when you cultivate in the future. Your cultivation speed will be faster than now. No wonder. Qinchuan suddenly realized that the reason why his cultivation speed was lagging behind others and why he could not advance to the foundation establishment stage was because of the restriction that Tsang Hao had planted in his body. Now that the restriction was removed, he would not be affected when he cultivated in the future. This was definitely a great thing for him. Tsang Hao looked down at the dragon soul in his hand and said to Qinchuan, "You may leave." Qinchuan took a deep look at Tsang Hao, who was not in a good mood, and said, "I will take my leave. My condolences, senior." After bidding farewell to Tsang Hao, Qinchuan left the Dragon Spirit Lake without any hindrance and returned to the shore. He looked back at the Dragon Spirit Lake and let out a long sigh. After returning the dragon soul to Tsang Hao, he had one less thing to worry about and could go on his way in a relaxed manner. North of the City of Elves there was a famous snow mountain. It was named the Great Python Snow Mountain because it looked like a python. On the winding mountain road, a young man wearing mountaineering clothes and a cotton hat was slowly moving forward. Under the attack of the cold wind and snow, the young man did not use spiritual energy to protect himself. He only moved forward with his physical body, allowing the wind and snow to fall on him. About 10 meters behind the young man, there was a group of 4 people. 2 men and 2 women were pointing at the young man. The young man with a thin layer of spiritual energy around him whispered to the young girl walking beside him, "Su-er, look at that person. Do you think he's an ordinary person or a cultivator?" Lu Su-er looked up at the young man in front of her and said indifferently, "He doesn't look like a cultivator. If he's a cultivator, why would he suffer from this wind and snow?" Su-er's analysis is reasonable. The young man chuckled and continued, "In this great python snow mountain, only ordinary people who want to try their luck and pick the wind snow lotus would take the risk to climb the mountain. Even if it's a 3-petal wind snow lotus, it's extremely rare. Furthermore, it's guarded by demonic beasts. If an ordinary person goes to look for the wind snow lotus, it's equivalent to courting death." Another young man snorted in disdain, "Lu Feng, don't tell me you think an ordinary person can really pick the wind snow lotus?" "Zhang Ming, I'm just saying it casually." Lu Feng frowned slightly and said, "Why are you so aggressive? That's enough. The 2 of you should stop talking." The young girl with a ponytail, Zhao Ning, looked at the two of them impatiently and said, "If you two continue to argue, then go down the mountain by yourself. Su'er and I will go find the wind snow lotus by ourselves." Hearing Zhao Ning's words, Lu Feng and Zhang Ming snorted and stopped talking. Obviously, they didn't want to go down the mountain by themselves and give the other party a chance to interact with Lu Su. The wind snow lotus is a necessary ingredient to make the foundation building liquid. If we're lucky enough to find a wind snow lotus on this trip to the Great Python Snow Mountain, then the four of us can each obtain a portion of the foundation building liquid and have a chance to advance to the foundation building stage before the age of 20. When the foundation building stage was mentioned, Lu Su'er's eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of yearning. Foundation building stage. My idol is only at the initial stage of the foundation building stage. Zhao Ning looked at Lu Su'er and said with a smile, "When I advance to the foundation building stage, I must go to the place where my idol once competed. Although your idol is only at the initial stage of the foundation building stage, his battle strength is comparable to a golden core stage cultivator. You're still far from him." Lu Su'er pursed her lips and smiled. She said to Zhao Ning, "You should think more about how to improve yourself." Hearing this, Zhao Ning rolled his eyes at Lu Su'er and said, "I can definitely become as strong as my idol. You don't even have the qualifications to participate in this year's 6 Great Academies ranking competition. Don't talk about other things." Zhang Ming couldn't help but mock Zhao Ning. Compared to the 6 Great Academies, our 10 Great Academies are far inferior. If you really have the ability to become that kind of person, then you should enter the 6 Great Academies. Chapter 355. Zhang Ming, what do you mean by that? Zhao Ning was immediately enraged. Like an enraged lion cub, he bared his fangs and brandished his claws at Zhang Ming. "Since your mouth is so powerful, why don't you represent our Huadong University in the challenge competition?" Zhang Ming sneered. "Compared to Senior Gao, I am still far behind. I know my own limits." Zhang Ming's words were clearly implying that Zhao Ning was overestimating his own capabilities. "That's enough. The two of you should stop arguing." Lu Su'er glanced at Zhang Ming helplessly and said, "Zhang Ming, you should stop arguing." Seeing Lu Su'er's appearance, Zhang Ming snorted coldly and no longer mocked Zhao Ning. However, Zhao Ning was still somewhat angry, but he was stopped by Lu Su. Whoosh! The wind whistled. The wind on the snowy mountain was stronger than before. Lu Su'er and the others had no choice but to strengthen their spiritual energy shield. With their vision obstructed, they moved forward with difficulty. When they saw a cave in the mountain wall in front of them, Lu Feng immediately said to everyone, "Let's go ahead and take shelter from the wind. It's too dangerous to force our way forward in this situation. The consumption of spiritual energy is too great." Everyone also felt that it was a difficult task to move forward in such a heavy snowstorm, so they hurriedly walked towards the cave in front. Lu Feng took the lead and walked into the cave. When he saw the burning furnace in the cave, he was stunned for a moment. Then he turned his gaze towards the young man sitting beside the furnace and warming himself. The youth facing Lu Feng's astonished gaze smiled and said, "This furnace was originally here. It should have been left behind by kind-hearted people for future generations to warm themselves with. You can use it as you wish." Hearing the youth's explanation, Lu Feng chuckled. He also walked to the furnace and sat down. Then, he casually threw a burning block on the ground into the furnace. Rubbing his hands, he began to warm himself. At this moment, Lu Su'er and the other two also walked in. When they saw the youth sitting next to the furnace, they were somewhat surprised. Zhang Ming even laughed and said, "Previously, you were always in front of us. I thought you weren't afraid of the wind and snow and would keep moving forward. I didn't expect to meet you here. You're just an ordinary person. Why would you come here to suffer? Don't tell me you're really here for Feng Shuelian? You're really seeking your own death." Hearing Zhang Ming's words, Lu Feng, who was the first to enter, could not help but say, Zhang Ming, no one will think you're mute if you don't speak." The young man only smiled and didn't say anything, as if he didn't care about what Zhang Ming said. After being scolded by Lu Feng, Zhang Ming didn't say anything. He leaned against the stove and sat down. He even thoughtfully prepared a cushion for Lu Su. As for Zhao Ning, he didn't receive such treatment. Everyone sat around the stove and quickly warmed up their bodies. The youth who had warmed up first walked to the inner part of the cave and sat down against the wall, as if preparing to sleep. At this moment, the sound of a baby's laughter came from outside the cave. Hearing this voice, no one in the cave had any reaction at first. However, in the next moment, Lu Su seemed to have thought of something. Her face could not help but reveal a look of pleasant surprise. She looked at everyone and said somewhat hurriedly, "I've read some records about the Great Python Snow Mountain and the Snow Lotus. Every snow lotus has a snow demon guarding it. When the snow lotus matures, the snow demon will let out a baby-like laughter out of joy." "What you're saying is that there is a snow lotus maturing near this cave." Zhang Ming's gaze was somewhat heated as he looked at Lu Su. They had painstakingly traveled thousands of miles to come here for the snow lotus. If there really was a snow lotus maturing nearby, then it would definitely be a great thing for them. Before the snow lotus matures, it will be hidden in the snow and won't be conspicuous. However, once it matures, it will quickly turn a clear blue color and emit a strange fragrance. If we want to find the snow lotus, we must do it now. Zhao Ning was also excited. With the snow lotus, they would have already obtained the foundation establishment elixir. How could they miss such an opportunity? Hearing this, Lu Feng hesitantly looked at the wind and snow outside the cave and said, "But the wind and snow outside right now is too strong." At this moment, the sky was filled with snow and the visibility was definitely not more than 2 meters. There was also the assault of strong winds. Under this kind of environment, leaving the cave to search for the snow lotus was too risky. "Hee Lu Feng, if you don't want to go, we won't force you. However, when we obtain the foundation establishment elixir, don't be jealous." Zhang Ming sneered. "If we do as you say and continue to wait here until the wind and snow die down, not to mention whether the snow lotus will be eaten by the snow demons, what if someone else competes with us? What should we do then?" "I'm just thinking about everyone's safety." Lu Feng couldn't help but defend himself. "All right, stop arguing." Lu Su frowned and said to everyone, "Now, let's vote by a show of hands. The minority obeys the majority." As soon as Lu Su finished speaking, Zhang Ming raised his hand and sneered, "I must obtain the snow lotus." Zhao Ning also raised his hand without any hesitation. If it wasn't for the snow lotus, who would be willing to come to this great snow mountain and suffer hunger? Now that the snow lotus was right in front of them, how could they miss it? Lu Su finally looked at Lu Feng and waited for his decision. Facing Lu Su's expectant gaze, although Lu Feng didn't agree with the suggestion of going out to search for the snow lotus, he had no choice but to raise his hand. "Since everyone agrees, then let's set off immediately." Lu Su stood up with a happy expression on her face. It seemed that she had already obtained the snow lotus. "Hey, it's dangerous outside." Just as everyone was about to set off, the young man who was curled up in the corner suddenly spoke up and reminded everyone that it was dangerous outside. Hearing the young man's words, Zhang Ming laughed and said, "Kid, the dangers outside are only targeted at ordinary people like you. We are all cultivators. Moreover, we are all cultivators at the 13th layer of the Qi refining realm. Do you know how strong cultivators are?" Lu Feng wanted to say something but hesitated. He also agreed with the young man's words and felt that it was indeed dangerous to go out now. However, it wasn't appropriate for him to say these words. He could only hope that his companions would listen to his advice and give up on their previous decision. Facing Zhang Ming's ridicule, the young man indifferently replied, "The snow demons are very strong. Hearing this, Zhang Ming sneered. He still wanted to say something but was stopped by Lu Su. All right, let's not waste time talking nonsense with him. He won't understand the value of the snow lotus. Let's go. After saying that, everyone walked out of the cave. Their figures quickly disappeared into the wind and snow. As for the young man who stayed in the cave, he adjusted his sitting posture and tightened the hat on his head, preparing to sleep. Chapter 356. On the Great Python Snow Mountain, the wind whistled and snowflakes danced in the sky. In this situation where everything was white, Lu Su-er's group of 4 walked with difficulty on the mountain road. They advanced according to the route provided by the radar. Lu Su walked in the middle of the group and tried her best to put the radar in front of her eyes. She looked at the route provided by the radar and said to everyone, "We can only go east now." According to the radar, there are only traces of snow demon activity in the east. If there is a mature snow lotus nearby, it must be in the east. At this moment, Zhang Ming, who was walking at the front of the group, asked loudly, "Which way is east?" In Zhang Ming's eyes, the world was completely white. He couldn't see anything. Not to mention north, south, east, west, he couldn't even tell up, down, left, and right. Lu Su raised her head and looked ahead. She could only see a vague shadow. She took 2 steps forward and handed the radar to Zhang Ming. She said loudly, "From now on, you will lead the way. You must watch the radar carefully. Don't go the wrong way." Zhang Ming took the radar. After identifying the direction, he found the east and began to advance. As time passed, the wind and snow not only didn't get smaller, it got bigger and bigger. Under the impact of the wind and snow, everyone's spiritual energy shields even showed signs of breaking. This won't do. We can't continue forward. Lu Feng looked at his spiritual energy shield that was almost invisible and said loudly to everyone, "My shield is about to break. What about you guys?" Hearing Lu Feng's shout, everyone subconsciously glanced at the spiritual energy shields around them. At this moment, they were shocked to discover that the spiritual energy shields around them had become extremely weak, as if they would shatter at the slightest touch. Unknowingly, more than half of the spiritual energy in their bodies had been consumed. "I don't have much spiritual energy left," Lu Su shouted to everyone with an ugly expression. "If we continue forward, even if we find the snow demon, we won't have any spiritual energy left to fight." What Lu Su said was indeed a very serious problem. They had consumed too much spiritual energy on the way. In addition to the interference of the wind and snow, their combat strength was already less than 10%. Even if they found the snow lotus, it would be useless. They couldn't fight against the snow demon guarding the snow lotus. "We can't just let this go." Zhang Ming was a little unwilling. They had already come this far. They couldn't possibly go back the way they came. The moment he thought about the possibility of facing the young man's mockery and ridicule when he returned, his face became extremely gloomy. Zhao Ning gritted his teeth and said to everyone, "Either we retreat or find a place to hide." With everyone's current situation, if they continued to move forward, once their spiritual power was exhausted and there was no place to hide from the wind and snow, there was a great possibility that they would be frozen in the snow and their lives would be in danger. Therefore, there were only 2 options in front of them. They could either return to the cave and rest until the wind and snow stopped, or they could find a place to hide and recover before continuing. "Why don't we, ha 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 ha." Just when Lu Su was about to make a decision to have everyone find a place to take shelter from the wind and snow, a burst of baby-like laughter suddenly rang in everyone's ears. "It's the snow demon. What a clear sound. It's very close to us." Hearing this laughter, Zhang Ming's eyes suddenly lit up, revealing a blazing light. Lu Su also became spirited and said to everyone, "We are close to our target." Hearing this, Lu Feng was a little embarrassed. After hesitating for a while, he still said to everyone, "In our current situation, can we still fight with the snow demons?" Although the snow demons were just ordinary demonic beasts, they had always appeared in groups. If they encountered the snow demons in their current state, they might not be able to win. Not to mention, the wind and snow were so heavy that it had a great impact on their movement. On the other hand, the snow demons were completely unaffected. They completely occupied the time and place. Lu Feng, you always say such depressing things at the crucial moment. Zhang Ming sneered and said to Lu Feng in disdain, we are all cultivators of the 13th level of the Qi refining stage. Those snow demons, the strongest one is only equivalent to the 5th or 6th level of the Qi refining stage. What is there to be afraid of? I can defeat a group of them by myself. Seeing that Zhang Ming and Lu Feng were about to quarrel again, Lu Suer hurriedly said to Zhang Ming, that's enough. Can the two of you stop arguing? I will make the decision. Let's go over and take a look at the situation. After that, we will decide whether or not to make a move. Although Lu Suer also felt that this was not the right time to make a move, she really could not resist the temptation of the Feng Shuelian. If she could not see the Feng Shuelian with her own eyes, she would not be satisfied. Since Lu Suer had made her decision, no one raised any objections. Just at this moment, the wind and snow gradually weakened. It seemed as though it was about to stop. Sensing the change in the wind and snow, everyone's faces couldn't help but reveal a joyous expression. Then, without prior agreement, they quickly walked toward the direction where the laughter came from. After everyone had walked for about 300 meters, the wind and snow had completely stopped. In front of them was a cliff. At the edge of the cliff, an azure three-petaled lotus was blooming in the wind, emitting a tempting fragrance. It really is the Feng Shuelian. The moment Lu Suer saw the Feng Shuelian, she could not help but let out a surprised cheer. Just as she was about to go forward to pick the Feng Shuelian, she was stopped by Zhao Ning. Suer, there must be a snow demon guarding the Feng Shuelian. Don't be careless. Zhao Ning looked around the Feng Shuelian with vigilance. The snow demon's entire body was snow-white. If it were to hide in a pile of snow, it would be almost impossible to see it with the naked eye. Before discovering any traces of the snow demon, it was absolutely impossible to rashly go forward to pick the flower. Hearing Zhao Ning's reminder, Lu Suer, who was a little hot-headed, suddenly woke up. She began to look around vigilantly for the whereabouts of the snow demon. However, after looking around, she could not find any traces of the snow demon. Why can't I see the snow demon? What about you guys? Lu Suer asked everyone with some doubts. I don't see it either. Zhang Ming shook his head. Although he did not see the existence of the snow demon, from the bottom of his heart, he believed that there must be a snow demon hiding nearby. Let me do it. Lu Feng suddenly took a step forward and took out a small black ball from his backpack. He said to everyone, this is an ink ball. It can release ink and dye everything black. Snow demons like white the most and hate black the most. As long as I throw the ink ball out and sprinkle ink around here, the snow demon will definitely have nowhere to hide. Chapter 357. Seeing Lu Feng take out the ink ball, Lu Suer's face couldn't help but reveal a hint of joy. She said to Lu Feng, then let's hurry up. Once they found the snow demons and dealt with them, they would be able to take the snow wind lotus and return to find a pharmacist to concoct the foundation building liquid. Even Zhang Ming, who had always disliked Lu Feng, couldn't help but curl his lips at this moment. He said, I couldn't tell, but you're still somewhat useful. Lu Feng ignored Zhang Ming's sarcastic remark. He activated the ink ball and threw it directly into the open space in front of him. When the ink ball landed on the ground, it started to spin on the spot and started to spray ink in all directions. When the ink dyed the snow black and started to spread in all directions, several snow-white monkey-like creatures suddenly jumped out from the snow. They were the snow demons. Haha, they really appeared. Seeing the appearance of the snow demons, Zhao Ning was very happy and clapped his hands. These snow demons didn't seem to be very strong. They should be able to deal with them easily. Not only was Zhao Ning happy, Lu Feng, Lu Suer and Zhang Ming were also very happy. Now that the biggest problem of finding the snow demons had been solved, the rest of the matter would be much simpler. A total of 6 snow demons. Lu Feng looked around and said, "As long as we deal with these 6 snow demons, we can be at ease and harvest the snow wind lotus." At this moment, Lu Suer had already taken out the mechanical box that was specially used to store the snow wind lotus. She was ready to harvest the snow wind lotus. "Haha, it's only 6 snow demons. I alone am enough to deal with them." Zhang Ming laughed out loud. Runes suddenly lit up on his body. With the support of the Herculean Strength Rune and Seraphic Speed Rune, he quickly rushed towards the flustered and exasperated snow demons that were constantly jumping about on the dark snowy ground. With a swing of his blade, a snow demon was knocked down to the ground and wailed in pain. Just as Zhang Ming had said, the 6 snow demons could not even withstand a single blow from him. In just a few moments, he had easily taken care of them, and their blood splattered everywhere. Seeing that Zhang Ming had dealt with the 6 snow demons, Lu Suer could no longer contain her excitement. She hugged the mechanical box and walked towards the wind snow lotus at the edge of the cliff. The closer she got to the wind snow lotus, the more excited she became. Breathing in the fragrance of the wind snow lotus, she slowly squatted beside the wind snow lotus. She stretched out her trembling hand and was about to pluck the wind snow lotus. At that moment, a furry paw suddenly stretched out from the bottom of the cliff. When Lu Suer saw the furry paw, she couldn't help but be stunned. In the next instant, her face revealed a trace of fear. A gigantic snow demon slowly climbed up from the bottom of the cliff. When the 2-meter-tall snow demon appeared at the edge of the cliff, everyone was shocked. It was their first time seeing such a huge snow demon. "Suer, run!" Zhao Ning was the first to react. He quickly shouted for Lu Suer to run for her life. Hearing Zhao Ning's reminder, Lu Suer finally regained her senses. She quickly turned around and ran towards the direction where everyone was. At the same time, when the snow demon saw the corpses of the snow demons lying on the ground, it immediately roared angrily. It raised its furry paw and slapped Lu Suer's body. Bang! Lu Suer's back was severely injured. Her face immediately turned pale, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. She fell forward and fell onto the snowy ground. At that moment, it was still some distance away from everyone. This snow demon is definitely not a demonic beast. It's a demon general. Zhang Ming looked at the gigantic snow demon in front of him with an extremely frightened expression. His entire body trembled uncontrollably. With their strength, if they encountered a demon general snow demon, they would definitely die. While Zhang Ming was retreating in fear, Lu Feng and Zhao Ning had already run to Lu Suer's side. They helped Lu Suer up from the ground. Seeing Lu Suer's pale face, Lu Feng asked with great concern, "How are you?" Hearing this, Lu Suer shook her head and said very weakly, "Run." Hearing Lu Suer's words, Lu Feng also understood that now was not the time to ask about this. Running for their lives was the most important thing. However, at that moment, the snow demon's figure had already appeared in front of them and blocked their path. Seeing the snow demon blocking in front of them, Lu Feng and Zhao Ning's faces could not help but reveal a trace of fear. With their strength, they were definitely no match for the snow demon. Now, their only hope was Zhang Ming. As long as Zhang Ming could attack the snow demon and attract its attention, they would have a chance to escape. However, when they looked at Zhang Ming expectantly, all they saw was a figure turning around and running away. Zhang Ming had abandoned them and escaped. Seeing this scene, Lu Feng, Zhao Ning, and Lu Suer could not help but feel despair. "Let's retreat." At this moment, Lu Feng suddenly made a decision. He quickly pulled Lu Suer and Zhao Ning back to the edge of the cliff and stood beside Feng Shuilian. He placed his hand beside Feng Shuelian, wanting to use Feng Shuelian to threaten the snow demon. Your companions were not killed by us. They were killed by the person who escaped just now. Lu Feng shouted at the snow demon, if you want revenge, go find that person. If you want to kill us, then we will destroy this Feng Shuelian. Hearing Lu Feng's shout, Lu Suer and Zhao Ning's faces could not help but reveal a trace of hope. At this time, they no longer had a way out. They could only use Feng Shuelian as a threat. As for those dead snow demons, they were killed by Zhang Ming. If Zhang Ming was still here, they naturally would not say such words to betray their friends. However, Zhang Ming had betrayed them first. Now, in order to save their lives, they had no choice but to use this method. As for whether the snow demon could understand them or not, it was not within the scope of everyone's consideration. Since the snow demon had already advanced to a demon general, its intelligence must have increased greatly. It would definitely be able to understand them. If the snow demon insisted on killing them, then they could only jump off the cliff with Feng Shuelian. Roar. In the face of Lu Feng's threat, the snow demon let out an angry roar. Obviously, the snow demon was not the kind of person who would submit easily. When Lu Feng saw the snow demon take a step forward, he could not help but reveal a trace of anger on his face. He shouted, if you take another step forward, I will destroy Feng Shuelian. However, the snow demon did not care. It did not take Lu Feng's threat to heart at all, and walked straight to the edge of the cliff. Seeing this scene, everyone's hearts were in complete despair. Facing a demon general who was completely unthreatened, they really had no way to deal with it. Patter. Just when everyone thought that death was at hand, a fist-sized rock suddenly fell from the sky and smashed into the snow demon's head, shattering it. Roar. The snow demon let out an angry roar. It turned around and looked fiercely in the direction of the flying rock. Chapter 358. A young man was lying lazily on a protruding rock. His eyes were calm as he looked at the enraged snow demon. He said calmly, "Big guy, if you have a grudge, then you have a grudge. Why do you have to make things difficult for them?" Roar. The snow demon roared angrily. It did not listen to the young man's advice at all. At this moment, Lu Feng and the other two who were standing by the cliff were stunned when they saw the young man's figure. They had thought that the person who had attracted the snow demon's attention at this critical moment was Zhang Ming, who had returned. They did not expect it to be the young man they had seen in the cave. Seeing that the young man had attracted the snow demon's attention, the group did not relax at all. How could a weak and ordinary young man be a match for the snow demon? This is a demon general. Zhao Ning shouted at the young man, "You should leave now." Although Zhao Ning wanted to live, this did not mean that she was willing to see others lose their lives for nothing. Ordinary people like the young man, even if there were 100 of them, would not be a match for the snow demon. However, the young man did not seem to have heard Zhao Ning's warning. He sat up from the rock and hooked his finger at the snow demon in a provocative manner. "Big guy, I'll call you. Do you dare to answer?" Hearing the young man's words, the snow demon was completely enraged. It had lived for so long, but this was the first time it had seen such an arrogant human. The snow demon roared angrily and rushed towards the young man. It raised its arm high and brazenly slapped down on the young man's head. Lu Feng and the others could not bear to see this. They closed their eyes. They did not want to see the scene of the young man being slapped to death by the snow demon. However, even after waiting for a long time with their eyes closed, they did not hear the young man's cries. Zhao Ning opened her eyes suspiciously. However, she saw a scene that she would never forget for the rest of her life. The young man used his white hand to firmly grab the snow demon's huge claw. Then, he violently flipped the snow demon onto the ground. Thud! The snow demon's huge body fell to the ground with a dull thud. It roared angrily but could not break free from the young man's suppression. "Little guy, your cultivation is not easy. Although a few of your descendants have died, You can still reproduce in the future. Are you sure you want to fight me here? The young man looked at the snow demon helplessly. I'll ask you one last time. Are you leaving or not? In the face of the young man's threat, the snow demon's angry roar gradually weakened. He stared at the young man with his bell-like eyes. After a moment, he actually let out a whimper and begged for mercy. When they saw this scene, Lu Feng and the others were completely stunned. That insufferably powerful General Snow was actually begging for mercy from this young man. When he saw the snow demon begging for mercy, the young man patted the snow demon's head lightly and said, "You should have done this earlier. Leave." With that, the young man stood up and walked towards the edge of the cliff. Just as the young man turned around, the snow demon's pleading expression turned into a sinister and vicious one. He raised his claws silently and slammed them towards the young man's head. At the edge of the cliff, Lu Feng and the other two could not help but exclaim when they saw this scene. "Be careful!" Bang! Blood splattered everywhere and the snow demon's head instantly exploded. The claws that were raised high in the air also fell powerlessly to the ground. With a plop, his huge body fell to the ground once again. However, this time, he would never have the chance to stand up again. The young man turned around and looked at the snow demon's corpse with a complicated expression. He gently shook his head and said, "Why did you have to do this?" When they saw the young man kill the snow demon with a raise of his hand, Lu Feng and the others were completely stunned. At this moment, even if they were slow to react, they should have understood that this young man was no ordinary person. He was a cultivator just like them. In fact, his cultivation level far surpassed theirs. The young man looked at the three stunned people and sighed. The snow wind lotus can help the snow demon advance. After eating it once, eating it again is useless. This snow wind lotus was prepared by this snow demon for its children. Now that all of its children are dead, this snow wind lotus is naturally useless to it. It is also because of this that it doesn't care about your threats and wants to kill you. When he heard the young man's explanation, Zhao Ning was slightly stunned. He then said to the young man, "Thank you for saving my life. There's no need to thank me." The young man chuckled and pointed at the snow wind lotus at the edge of the cliff. He said, "I've been going back and forth to the Great Python Snow Mountain for the past few days to wait for this snow wind lotus to mature. Tell me, who does this snow wind lotus belong to now?" When they heard this, everyone revealed a troubled expression. They had come to the Great Python Snow Mountain for the snow wind lotus. Now that the snow wind lotus was right in front of them, if they missed it, it would be very difficult for them to encounter it again. However, if the young man had not saved them, they would probably be dead by now. It was not right for them to fight over the snow wind lotus with their savior. Moreover, even if they joined forces, they might not be a match for the young man. The snow wind lotus is naturally. The snow wind lotus is obviously ours. At this moment, Zhang Ming's figure suddenly appeared behind the young man. His eyes were burning with greed as he looked at the snow wind lotus. He said loudly, "We were the first to discover the snow wind lotus. Of course it's ours." When he saw Zhang Ming return, Lu Feng could not help but angrily say to Zhang Ming, "When we were in danger earlier, you refused to save us. You turned around and ran. Now that the danger has been dealt with, you jump out and want to fight over the snow wind lotus with our savior. Zhang Ming, you're really shameless." Even Lu Suer, who wanted the snow wind lotus the most, felt that Zhang Ming's words were inappropriate. No matter what, the young man was their savior. Moreover, the young man had said that he had discovered the snow wind lotus long ago and had been waiting for it to mature. Previously, when they were in the cave, the young man had warned them that there would be danger. It was obvious that he already knew about the existence of the demon General Snow. It could be seen that the young man was not lying. "I wasn't running away at that time. I was thinking of a way to save you." Zhang Ming was despised by Lu Feng. He could not help but defend himself. You also know that even if I had stayed back at that time, it would have been useless. Then, have you thought of a way? Zhao Ning sneered. She looked at Zhang Ming with disdain. This was the first time she had seen someone who could quibble like him. Of course, I've thought of a way. However, the demon General Snow has been dealt with. Naturally, my method is useless. Zhang Ming spoke with confidence. The few of them were angry and wanted to laugh at the same time. They could not help but look at the young man. They wanted to see what the young man was going to say. However, just when everyone thought that the young man would angrily scold Zhang Ming, the young man slowly took a step back and said to Zhang Ming, "If you want it, then go ahead and take it." Chapter 359. When the youth stepped aside, everyone's face revealed a surprised expression. Even Zhang Ming didn't think that the youth would actually step aside. Not only did the youth step aside, he also said to Lu Feng and the other two who were standing beside the Feng Shuelian, "You guys step aside too. The Feng Shuelian is his." Lu Feng and the other two had doubts about the youth's decision. However, in the end, they still listened to the youth's words. They left the cliff and walked to the youth's side. On the other side, even though Zhang Ming had some doubts in his heart, he couldn't care less about the Feng Shuelian that was within his reach. No matter what the youth's plan was, the most important thing was to obtain the Feng Shuelian. Haha, it's so easy to obtain. Zhang Ming laughed loudly and was extremely proud. With the Feng Shuelian, it's equivalent to having the foundation building elixir. The foundation establishment realm is just around the corner. Seeing the ecstatic Zhang Ming dashing to the cliff to pick the Feng Shuelian, Lu Suer couldn't help but glance at the youth. She wanted to say something but hesitated. She really couldn't understand the youth in front of her. If he didn't want the Feng Shuelian, he could have given it to them. Why did he have to give it to Zhang Ming? Lu Feng was also very puzzled. However, he decided to listen to the youth's words. As for the foundation building elixir, at worst, they could think of other ways. However, Zhao Ning was extremely unhappy. She couldn't stand Zhang Ming's smug face the most. When the joyful Zhang Ming ran to the cliff and was about to pick the Feng Shuelian, a tall figure suddenly appeared from the bottom of the cliff. It was actually another snow demon with a huge body. Seeing this scene, the expression on Zhang Ming's face immediately stiffened. His widened eyes were filled with fear, and the joy from before was completely gone. Lu Feng and the other two were also stunned by the sudden appearance of the Snow Demon General. If it wasn't for the corpse of the Snow Demon General lying in front of them, they would have thought that it was an illusion. This Snow Demon General was originally a male and a female. Otherwise, where would these offspring come from? The youth indifferently glanced at the Snow Demon General and said, "This newcomer is female." When he heard the young man's words, Lu Feng couldn't help but turn to look at the young man and ask, "You knew that there was a Demon General Snow here, so you got Zhang Ming to pick the Snow Wind Lotus?" "I've said it before. I've been observing this place for a long time. Naturally, I know that the Snow Demon Generals are a male and a female. Didn't your friend think of a way to deal with the Snow Demon Generals? I can try it on this Demon General Snow." The young man spoke calmly, as if he had no intention of saving Zhang Ming. At this moment, Zhang Ming had recovered from his initial shock. He turned around and ran towards the others. However, General Snow did not give him a chance to escape. He stretched out his claws and pressed him to the ground. Zhang Ming lay on the ground and looked at everyone with fear in his eyes. He shouted in despair, "Save me! Save me!" Faced with Zhang Ming's request for help, Lu Suer subconsciously turned her gaze to the young man. She hoped that the young man would be able to save Zhang Ming. However, faced with Lu Suer's pleading gaze, the young man's expression was extremely cold. He coldly said, "Give me a reason to save him." When she heard the young man's words, Lu Suer opened her mouth but was unable to say anything. This was because the young man really did not have a reason to save Zhang Ming. If it wasn't for Zhang Ming's greed, he wouldn't have been targeted by General Snow in the first place. Bang! At this moment, General Snow raised his claws high up and fiercely slapped Zhang Ming's back. Following a muffled sound, Zhang Ming spat out a mouthful of blood. His facial features were twisted together due to the intense pain. He looked extremely miserable. When they saw Zhang Ming's miserable state, everyone felt sorry for him. However, they were no match for General Snow, so they could only watch helplessly. Just as Demon General Snow was about to attack again and kill Zhang Ming, a bolt of lightning suddenly fell from the sky and struck Demon General Snow's head. Demon General Snow was killed on the spot, which shocked everyone. "I've saved you this time. I hope that you won't bite the hand that feeds you next time." The young man's eyes were indifferent as he glanced at Zhang Ming, who was lying on the ground with an expression of relief on his face. He then raised his foot and walked towards Feng Shuelian, who was at the edge of the cliff. When they heard the young man's words, Lu Feng and the others finally understood. The bolt of lightning that fell from the sky must have come from the young man's hand. It was obvious that the young man did not intend for General Snow to kill Zhang Ming. He only wanted to punish Zhang Ming. Zhang Ming lay on the ground and watched as the young man walked past him. His eyes were filled with terror and his previous greed had completely disappeared. The young man squatted next to Feng Shuelian. He then carefully took out a beautiful bottle from his backpack and placed the Feng Shuelian and a pile of snow into the bottle. Looking at the beautiful blooming Feng Shuelian in the bottle, the young man smiled and said, "This is a pretty good birthday present." As he spoke, the young man stood up and said to Lu Feng and the others, "The matter here is over. Let's part ways here." "Wait," Zhao Ning suddenly called out to the young man. Her eyes were filled with anticipation and nervousness as she looked at the young man and asked, "What's your name?" Hearing this, the young man chuckled and said, "My name is not important." After saying this, the young man turned around and walked down the mountain. Zhao Ning stood there in a daze as she watched the young man's figure disappear into the distance. Even though he could no longer be seen, she still did not retract her gaze. "What are you looking at?" Lu Su'er saw Zhao Ning's expression and asked, "Don't tell me you're tempted." "No, didn't you think that he looked particularly familiar just now?" Zhao Ning looked at Lu Su'er with a complicated expression and said, "The bolt of lightning that fell from the sky, the elegant figure, the outstanding strength, they all look too similar." Hearing Zhao Ning's words, Lu Feng was stunned for a moment. Then, he said with some astonishment, "Don't tell me that this person is Qin Chuan?" "He is Qin Chuan." Zhao Ning's tone was very certain as he said to everyone, "I'm sure of it." Qin Chuan was Zhao Ning's idol. During this period of time, she had watched Qin Chuan's matches in the 6 Great Academies ranking competition over and over again. It could be said that she had long memorized Qin Chuan's appearance in her mind. At first, she did not recognize him because Qin Chuan had wrapped himself up too tightly and the light in the cave was too dark. Now that Qin Chuan had made a move, coupled with close observation, Zhao Ning was certain that she had not seen wrongly. Hearing Zhao Ning's words, Lu Feng and Lu Su'er could not help but exclaim. Since Zhao Ning said so, that young man must be Qin Chuan. Who would have thought that they would actually meet the famous new champion of the 6 Great Academies ranking competition, the MVP? When Zhang Ming, who was lying on the ground, heard everyone's words, his pale face could not help but reveal a hint of resentment. Chapter 360. That's right, the youth who had just obtained the Wind Snow Lotus and left the mountain was Qin Chuan, who had left the Black Moon Combat Academy and embarked on his journey alone. Qin Chuan had appeared here because it was almost his teacher Ningya's birthday. In a conversation a few days ago, Ningya had unintentionally mentioned her birthday and told Qin Chuan, who had already reached the Great Python Snow Mountain, that her birthday wish was to receive a flower that would never wither as a present. As long as the Wind Snow Lotus was not destroyed, it would always remain in full bloom. It could be said that this was very much in line with Ningya's wishes. Qin Chuan, who had received the hint, would naturally not disappoint Ningya, which was why he had been waiting here for a few days. After leaving the Great Python Snow Mountain, Qin Chuan found a local express delivery company in a small town at the foot of the mountain and sent the Wind Snow Lotus to the Black Moon Combat Academy's office in the Elven City. Qin Chuan had even bought insurance for such a valuable item, just in case. After doing all this, Qin Chuan prepared to rest in the small town for the night and continue his journey the next day. Sitting in a restaurant in the small town, Qin Chuan drank warm fruit juice while watching the television report of the 6 Great Academies qualifiers. Although the freshman competition and the official competition had ended, the challenge competition was still ongoing. The top 10 academies would decide the champion and runner-up in the challenge competition and then challenge the bottom 2 academies of the 6 Great Academies. If they won, they would replace the loser and become one of the 6 Great Academies. In the past, the 5th and 6th places of the 6 Great Academies were usually the Starry Sky Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy. However, this year, the Black Moon Combat Academy had risen to the top and the Starry Sky Academy had also shone brilliantly, taking 3rd place in the 3rd place competition. Therefore, the bottom 2 academies were the Black Heaven Sex Affiliated University and the Federation Military University. Unsurprisingly, the champion and runner-up of the challenge competition were Huadong University and Linhai University. Huadong University, led by Gao Xuelyang, chose to challenge the Federal Military University, while Linhai University, led by Sun Mao, chose to challenge the university affiliated to the mysterious Sky Sect. The competition started this morning. At that time, Qin Chuan was on his way up the mountain and didn't have time to watch the competition. At this time, watching the replay on the crystal screen and listening to the discussions of the customers around him, he couldn't help but frown. Did you guys see the match this afternoon? Sun Mao versus Chen Aochu. He was almost killed by Chen Aochu. That's right. It's said that if it wasn't for the referee, Sun Mao would have died. Apparently, it was because Sun Mao mentioned Chen Chongqing that Chen Aochu wanted to kill him. Qin Chuan looked at Chen Aochu's gloomy expression on the crystal screen and couldn't help but frown. It seemed that losing to Chen Chongqing in the official competition had a great impact on Chen Aochu, causing him to be unwilling to even hear Chen Chongqing's name. Thinking of the trip to the carefree secret territory that was soon to come, Qin Chuan suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, a delicate figure suddenly appeared beside him. Can I sit here? There are no other empty seats. Hearing this, Qin Chuan raised his eyes to look at the girl who spoke and was slightly stunned. He didn't expect to meet Zhao Ning here again. After looking around and confirming that there were no empty seats, Qin Chuan calmly said to Zhao Ning, "Sit." "Thank you." Zhao Ning sat down on the chair beside Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan, "Su Er and Zhang Ming were injured. We sent them to the hospital for treatment. Lu Feng is taking care of them in the hospital. I came out to buy food for them. This has nothing to do with me." Qin Chuan drank a mouthful of fruit juice. He wasn't interested in Zhao Ning's matters. Seeing that Qin Chuan wasn't interested in these matters, Zhao Ning changed the topic and excitedly said to Qin Chuan, "We're all freshmen at Huadong University. We've all watched the 6 Great Academies ranking competition. You're my idol. I especially admire you." Qin Chuan glanced at Zhao Ning and said, "Thank you." Qin Chuan didn't suspect that Zhao Ning's words were false. This was because Zhao Ning had clearly recognized him on the snowy mountain. If Zhao Ning wasn't familiar with him, he wouldn't have been able to recognize him under those circumstances. "I've always wanted to become someone like you. Handsome, confident, responsible, and able to challenge those of a higher level," Zhao Ning happily said to Qin Chuan. "At that time, I was very regretful that I wasn't able to see you at the scene. Later, I saw the news report that you didn't return to the Black Moon Combat Academy. I was curious where you went, but I didn't expect to see you here in the blink of an eye. Where are you going? Zhao Ning directly asked Qin Chuan about his destination. Although it was a little inappropriate, Qin Chuan didn't mind. He simply replied, I'm going to see a friend of mine and give him a surprise. Originally, Wang Bo should have been able to watch all the matches in Star Dragon City before leaving. However, because of the sudden battle at the Eastern Mountain front line, Wang Bo had received an emergency notice and had to leave early. He didn't even have the time to inform Qin Chuan. He had only sent an email. After winning the championship, Qin Chuan had sent Wang Bo an email and called him, but he hadn't been able to contact him. After reading the news about the Eastern Mountain front line, Qin Chuan knew that the situation there was tense. He decided to go to the Eastern Mountain front line and visit Wang Bo in the barrack. It's a blessing to be able to be your friend, Zhao Ning said to Qin Chuan enviously. I also want to be your friend. When Qin Chuan heard this, he didn't know what to say. It was easy to become his friend, but it was also very difficult. Zhao Ning also felt that she had said too much. She stuck her tongue out at Qin Chuan and said, Well, the food I ordered is almost ready. I'll be leaving first. Goodbye. Qin Chuan waved at Zhao Ning and watched her walk to the front desk. She took the food in the lunchbox and left the restaurant. After Zhao Ning left, Qin Chuan turned on his optical computer and checked the latest news about the Eastern Mountain battle. When he saw that the Eastern Mountain front line was in a disadvantageous situation and that the front line had been completely defeated, Qin Chuan couldn't help but frown. How could they be defeated so suddenly? When he saw that the Eastern Mountain front line had more than 10,000 casualties, Qin Chuan couldn't sit still. Although he didn't think that a medic like Wang Bo would be in any danger, he couldn't be at ease unless he saw that Wang Bo was fine with his own eyes. After calling Wang Bo again but no one picked up, Qin Chuan immediately booked a flight to Eastern Mountain City the next morning. He decided to stop sightseeing and go to the Eastern Mountain front line immediately. Chapter 361. 30 miles outside of Dongshan City, in the Dongshan military camp built against the mountain, countless soldiers were going in and out. Every one of them had an extremely gloomy expression on their faces. With the defeat at the front line, the Dongshan military camp, which was originally a logistics base, had become the front line overnight, receiving countless wounded and dispirited soldiers. At this time, it could be said that it was a mess without any order to speak of. Make way! Make way! In the midst of the loud shouts, 2 dusty soldiers carried a soldier with a broken arm on a stretcher and ran quickly in the direction of the infirmary. Seeing this, the soldiers who were resting on the ground all made way for the trio. Looking at the soldier lying on the stretcher, clenching his teeth and refusing to make any sound, everyone's expression was somewhat numb. They had seen too many of such things today. The soldier with a broken arm could be fitted with a mechanical arm, and after the surgery, he could still be alive and kicking. However, those soldiers who died on the battlefield did not even have the chance to become ghost cultivators, because their souls would be absorbed and devoured by the demon race. They would never be given the chance to live another life. Bang! A young soldier fiercely punched the ground and said hatefully, I don't understand, how did we lose? Hearing the young soldier's words, everyone looked at each other. No one could answer this question because they were all baffled. They had no idea why they had lost. Is there anyone who knows a little about medicine? Who can give me a hand? At this time, a young man wearing a dirty white coat quickly walked out of the infirmary. His eyes were very anxious as he looked at the people sitting on the ground. Faced with the young man's question, no one responded, because anyone who knew a little about medicine had already been conscripted. Those who were left were all people who did not know anything about medicine. Seeing that no one responded, the young man immediately turned and walked into the infirmary, nervously throwing himself into the work of treating the wounded. "This little guy has been in the infirmary for a day and a night, and he hasn't rested until now," a warrior with a bandage wrapped around his head said to the crowd in a low voice. "He was the one who treated my wound. I wrapped the bandage carelessly because he didn't have time to do it for me." Hearing the wounded soldier's words, everyone's mood was a little complicated. They could also see that the young man's face was very tired and his eyes were bloodshot. His overall condition was very bad, but he still didn't rest and still persisted in treating the wounded. He was very dedicated but also very distressing. "You'd better remember his name. His name is Wang Bo, and he's an excellent medic. When the demons arrive, we can die, but he must live." The wounded soldier looked firmly in the direction of the infirmary and said to everyone, "Only when people like him are alive can more of us survive." In the infirmary, Wang Bo, who was nervously treating the wounds of the wounded, didn't know that the people outside were talking about him. Even if he knew, he probably didn't have time to think too much about it. Now, he had put all his energy into treating the wounded. The wounded man who had lost 2 eyeballs needed his help. "The wound has been cleaned. Necrotic eyeball removed. Temporary paralysis of nervous system. Mechanical eyeball installed. Connect to nervous system and perform light sensor test." After a series of work, it was already 10 minutes later. This was the fastest Wang Bo could do. If it weren't for the countless wounded waiting for him to treat, he would patiently help the wounded in front of him to perform a more detailed test. Unfortunately, he didn't have the time now. "Next!" Wang Bo shouted. He only had time to raise his arm to wipe the sweat on his face and hurriedly walked to the next wounded. "Wang Bo, wait a moment." A female doctor stopped Wang Bo and said to him, "Go rest for a while and then come back to work." Wang Bo frowned and said, "But there are so many wounded waiting for me. How can I rest?" "Go rest. You should be in charge of these wounded people before you perform the surgery." The female doctor looked at Wang Bo with a somewhat distressed gaze and said, "Look at you now. Can you still stand steadily? What if you make mistakes because of exhaustion during the surgery?" The female doctor's words were very reasonable. Wang Bo couldn't refute. He put down the tools in his hand and said to the female doctor, "I understand, Sister Xian. I will go rest now." Wang Bo took off his blood-stained coat and slowly walked in the direction of the lounge. At this time, the lounge was empty. He was the only one there. The other doctors were working hard to treat the wounded. After returning to the lounge, Wang Bo laid down on the bed. A strong sense of exhaustion surged in, almost drowning Wang Bo. At this time, Wang Bo discovered that he was so tired that he didn't even have the strength to lift his eyelids. Wang Bo didn't know how long he slept. He was awakened by the temptation of a fragrance. "Since you are awake, get up. I have cooked noodles for you." Hearing this, Wang Bo sat up from the bed and looked at Wei Zixin, who was sitting beside him and holding a bowl of fragrant meat noodle soup made from the bones of demonic beasts. His face couldn't help but reveal a trace of guilt. "Sister Xian, I am really sorry. I just wanted to rest. I didn't expect to fall asleep." "It's okay. I originally wanted you to sleep and rest." Wei Zixin smiled and put the noodles on the table. She said to Wang Bo, "Quickly get up and eat." Wang Bo stood up and looked at the door of the lounge. He asked Wei Zixin, "How many wounded are there now?" Seeing that Wang Bo didn't eat immediately and was worried about the wounded, Wei Zixin's eyes flashed with a strange light. She smiled and said to Wang Bo, "We have reinforcements. The 10th Legion sent their medical team to support us. We have enough manpower now. You don't have to worry about the wounded. Quickly eat." Hearing Wei Zixin's explanation, Wang Bo was relieved. He sat in front of the table and ate the noodles in big mouthfuls. Slurp, slurp. It only took a short while for Wang Bo to finish the big bowl of noodles. Wang Bo finished the soup in one gulp and looked at Wei Zixin, who was sitting opposite him with a strange expression. He said with embarrassment, "I am really too hungry." Wei Zixin couldn't help but laugh. She said to Wang Bo, "I still remember the first time I saw you. You were still a little fatty. How long has it been since then? You have already slimmed down and become a strong man." Wei Zixin pushed her bowl of noodles in front of Wang Bo and said, "I can't eat so much. I am already full. You can have the rest." Chapter 362. At this time, because of the defeat at the front line, the people in Eastern Mountain City were already in a state of panic. No one knew if the Eastern Mountain military camp could withstand the attack of the demon race. If the Eastern Mountain military camp fell, their Eastern Mountain City would be next. Just as everyone was in danger, the 10th Legion arrived. When they saw the huge fleet of the 10th Legion flying across the sky, the people of Eastern Mountain City calmed down. Everyone's faces were filled with joy. The 10th Legion was the most valiant and skilled army in the Star Dragon Federation. With the support of the 10th Legion, they believed that the demon race would not be able to run rampant for long. On the deck of the main ship, Qin Ju, who was wearing a dark green military uniform, stood under the flag. He looked ahead and asked his deputy, "Yuna, have you investigated it?" Reporting to the general, "It has been investigated clearly. This time, the ones who broke through the Eastern Mountain front line were the Lion tribe of the demon race." Yuna replied in a low voice, "The Lion tribe almost came out in full force. Moreover, they suddenly descended on the Eastern Mountain front line through the space tunnel. The Eastern Mountain front line was defeated because they were caught off guard." Qin Ju frowned slightly and said, "The opponents of the Eastern Mountain front line have always been the Iron Wolf tribe. Why did it suddenly become the Lion tribe this time? What is the Iron Wolf tribe doing?" "The Iron Wolf tribe has all retreated, leaving enough space for the Lion tribe to move. As for the Iron Wolf tribe's next move, it is unknown for the time being. Investigate as quickly as possible. The demon race has no reason to let the Lion tribe replace the Iron Wolf tribe, and the Iron Wolf tribe will definitely not quietly stay behind." "Yes." Yuna accepted the order and left. Qin Ju slowly retracted his gaze and looked at the Eastern Mountain military camp not far away. After an entire night of rest, Wang Bo recovered the next morning. After a series of physical examinations, he returned to work and began to treat the injured. Just as Wang Bo was about to treat the fourth injured person, Wei Zixin, as his superior, found him and told him to pack up and prepare to welcome the 10th Legion's commander, Qin Ju. "Why should I welcome her? I'm just a doctor." Wang Bo looked at Wei Zixin in surprise. "If I have the time to be formalistic, can't I treat a few more injured people?" Hearing Wang Bo's words, Wei Zixin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You're quite an honest person. Why don't you see that there are still so many injured people? Just go and welcome General Qin. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Wang Bo looked at Wei Zixin helplessly and said, "I got it. I'll go and prepare now." Seeing Wang Bo's unhappy face, Wei Zixin smiled and said to Wang Bo, "Since you are so unhappy, let me tell you a piece of good news. In order to reward your performance in this crisis, we have unanimously decided to promote your military rank from corporal to staff sergeant. Furthermore, we will reward you with 30,000 spiritual value points." Jumping 2 levels in a row? Wang Bo was a little surprised. He was promoted from corporal to staff sergeant just because he treated some of the wounded. Wasn't this a little rocket? That's right. Because your performance in this crisis was perfect, your image was deeply engraved in people's hearts. Very few of the wounded who had been treated by you took the initiative to ask for a reward from their superiors. Wei Zixin looked at Wang Bo happily and said, "The reason why we asked you to welcome General Qin is because we want General Qin to personally award you. From today onwards, You are the holder of the Battlefield Angel Medal. The Battlefield Angel Medal was a medal that was only awarded to medics who had treated more than 1,000 wounded people on the front lines. It was both an encouragement and recognition. Many people who had been on the front lines for a few years might not even have the qualifications to receive the Battlefield Angel Medal. Wang Bo had only been in the army for a little over a year, and he had only been a medic for less than a year. Hearing that there was an award ceremony, Wang Bo was a little surprised. He was only a corporal. Even if he was promoted to staff sergeant, it wasn't worth it for a powerful general to personally award him an award. Are you very surprised? Wei Zixin smiled and said to Wang Bo, there is something that will make you even more surprised. General Qin was the one who requested to participate in this award ceremony. This time, Wang Bo was really dumbfounded. General Qin took the initiative to award him an award? This was too much of a dream. Wang Bo followed beside Wei Zixin in a daze. Wei Zixin arranged for him to wash up and change his clothes so that he could appear in his most spirited state. Only then did she bring him to the training grounds of the military camp to prepare for the upcoming award ceremony. This time, there were a total of 3 people who were awarded medals. Other than Wang Bo's Battlefield Angel Medal, there were also 200 Battle Elite medals. They were awarded to 2 frontline soldiers who had outstanding performance on the battlefield. However, the more special point was that only Wang Bo's Battlefield Angel Medal was personally awarded by Qin Ju. At this moment, the martial arts practice field was already filled with a sea of people. However, everyone consciously stood in a square formation. Although there were many people, it didn't seem chaotic or crowded. Wei Zixin directly brought Wang Bo to the front of the line. She glanced at the podium in the center and said to Wang Bo, "Hurry up and go over. Your boss is over there." Wang Bo glanced at his boss who was standing at the podium and nodded at Wei Zixin. Then, he quickly ran towards the podium and said to his boss who was standing below the podium, "Boss, I'm here." When Fang Yong heard this, he turned around and looked at Wang Bo who was standing behind him. He patted his shoulder in relief and said, "Good boy, you've already become the holder of the Battlefield Angel Medal at such a young age. Not bad, not bad." Wang Bo scratched his head and said to Fang Yong, "I didn't expect it to be so fast. However, boss, why did General Qin award me an award?" To be honest, Wang Bo had thought about this for a long time. He really couldn't figure out what was so important about him that General Qin would personally award him an award. If others were also awarded by General Qin, he naturally wouldn't think too much about it. However, he was the only one, so he had no choice but to think about it. Fang Yong looked at Wang Bo with a subtle gaze and asked, "Have you heard about your good brother, Qin Chuan?" "What?" Wang Bo looked at Fang Yong in confusion. Why was this award matter related to Qin Chuan? Fang Yong patted Wang Bo's shoulder again and said to him, "Don't worry, this is only good for you. There's no harm." Just as Wang Bo was about to ask something, a series of shouts suddenly came from the front. It turned out that General Qin of the 10th Legion and her guards had arrived. Looking at the valiant guards who were slowly walking over in an orderly manner, Wang Bo's gaze was almost instantly attracted by the cold figure wearing a dark green military uniform walking at the front of the guards. Chapter 363. Seeing Qin Ju's arrival, Fang Yong immediately walked up to him and respectfully bowed. "I am Fang Yong, the commander of the Eastern Mountain Front Line. Greetings, General Qin." Qin Ju looked at Fang Yong with cold eyes and asked, "Since you are the frontline commander, then please tell me, why are you still alive when so many soldiers were sacrificed at the front line? Where were you when the front line needed to be commanded?" As soon as Qin Ju's voice fell, the martial arts arena became extremely quiet. No one expected Qin Ju to question Fang Yong like this in front of so many people. Facing Qin Ju's question, Fang Yong looked ashamed. "General Qin, when the front line was attacked, I wasn't there to supervise the battle and command the troop. It's my fault. It's not Commander Fang's fault. At this moment, Fang Yong's guard stepped forward and said loudly to Qin Ju, "The 14th Army deducted our pay." Commander Fang left the front line to go to the 14th Army's base to help us get our pay back. He wasn't able to command us to defend and counterattack immediately, causing the front line to lose. If you want to blame someone, you should ask the people of the 14th Army. You have no right to speak here. Fang Yong turned around and glared at the guard. A mistake is a mistake. After reprimanding the guard, Fang Yong immediately turned to Qin Ju and said, "Sir, I am incompetent in disciplining my subordinates. Please punish me." "No need." Qin Ju glanced indifferently at Fang Yong and said, "I'll get someone to investigate the ins and outs of this matter. If it's really as your guard said, that the 14th Army Corps has the guts to embezzle the pay of your frontline soldiers, I'll naturally seek justice for you. But if I find out that you're lying, then I don't mind sending a defeated general to court." Fang Yong looked deeply at Qin Ju and said, "I believe General Qin will deal with this matter impartially and not let any good person be treated unfairly." Wang Bo stood below the podium and looked at the cold-faced Qin Ju. He couldn't help but feel some respect for Qin Ju. He felt that Qin Ju was too strict and had a strong aura. Accompanied by Fang Yong, Qin Ju slowly walked to the podium and naturally looked at Wang Bo, who was standing at the side. Looking at the obvious reverence on Wang Bo's face, he asked, "Are you afraid?" Wang Bo was a little confused. How was he supposed to answer this question? Qin Ju sized Wang Bo up from head to toe and pursed his lip. "Perform well in the future." With that, Qin Ju stepped onto the podium and turned to look at the nearly 10,000 warriors present. Her eyes were sharp and her expression was serious. She said in a deep voice, "Everyone present, perhaps some of you know me, perhaps some of you don't. It doesn't matter, because I didn't come here to introduce myself, but to lead you to victory and take back the lost territory. It doesn't matter if our opponent is the Iron Wolf tribe or the Lion tribe, because they will all die under our swords. Now, those who have been scared out of their wits by the Demon Clan, those who have old and young at home, and those who want to go home to marry and have children, can go to the logistics department of the 10th Legion to get a pension and leave. I will definitely not stop you. Perhaps your parents, your wives and children are waiting for you to come home. This will be a very good choice. Now, please make your decision." Whether it was the warriors present at the scene or the warriors who watched this simple speech through the crystal screen, they all made the same decision in their hearts. That was to go back with the 10th Legion, kill all the Demon Clan, and take back the territory they had lost from their hands. If they left like this, they would forever bear the crime of losing their territory. Even if no one scolded them, they would still blame themselves and feel uneasy. Fight back! It was unknown who roared, but a roar suddenly sounded in the square. The entire East Mountain military camp was infected by this roar. Everyone let out angry roars. They wanted to fight back, defeat the Demon Clan, and take back the lost territory. Fight back! Fight back! Wang Bo stood below the podium and shouted with all his might. His entire face flushed red from excitement. Although Qin Ju's speech wasn't that gorgeous or rigorous, it was simple and simple. It infected people's hearts. No one was willing to be a defeated coward. As long as they had courage, they wouldn't choose to retreat at this time. After the short motivational speech, it was time for the main event, the award ceremony. The first two warriors who were awarded the 100 Battles Elite Medal were awarded by Fang Yong. When Wang Bo stepped onto the stage, the person who awarded the medal was changed to Qin Ju. Wang Bo walked up to the podium. His expression was a little excited, but also a little nervous. He looked at Qin Ju standing in front of him and excitedly raised his hand to salute. Qin Ju returned the salute very seriously and said to Wang Bo, I believe that you will definitely become an outstanding warrior, save more comrades, and save more families. I will definitely work hard. Wang Bo nodded solemnly. Although he couldn't bravely kill the enemy on the battlefield, he could save the lives of countless comrades in the rear. He felt that his job was very important and also extremely sacred. Just as Qin Ju was about to wear the medal on Wang Bo's chest, the ground of the martial arts practice field suddenly trembled slightly. The trembling became more and more obvious, and the expression on Qin Ju's face also became serious. General, 20 kilometers to the northwest, a large number of demon troops are advancing. Their target is the camp. Hearing Yuna's report, Qin Ju reached out and handed the battlefield angel badge to Wang Bo. He looked sharply to the northwest and said to Fang Yong, "Commander Fang, give the order." Hearing this, Fang Yong nodded heavily and said to everyone in a clear voice, "Everyone, listen up. Immediately head to the East Mountain ship and prepare for war." Wang Bo's eyes were filled with worry as he looked at the soldiers below the stage. Who would have thought that the war would start again after only a day of rest? Wang Bo, Qin Ju suddenly turned his gaze to Wang Bo and asked, "If the soldiers on the front line shed their last drop of blood, are you willing to fight to the death on the battlefield? Even if you're just a medic and don't have much combat strength?" "Of course," Wang Bo replied without hesitation, "it's everyone's responsibility to protect the country. I'm willing to go to the front lines and sacrifice myself." Hearing this, Qin Ju looked at Wang Bo with gratified eyes and said, "It's enough to have this determination and this intention. Live well. You have to know that only if you live can more people live." After chatting with Wang Bo, Qin Ju left. She wanted to return to the fleet of the 10th Army and head to the front lines to stop the demon army. Chapter 364. On the vast plains of the eastern mountains, tens of thousands of demons were advancing. Some of them wore simple armor and held sharp-boned spears in their hands. Some of them even transformed into their true forms and ran in the posture of lions, roaring in high spirits. Above the army, dozens of huge bone warships were advancing at a constant speed. On one of the largest warships, a tall and mighty figure stood on the deck, looking ahead with gloomy eyes. "Are you sure it's Qin Ju's 10th Legion?" "Yes, the scouts have reported that it's indeed the 10th Legion." Gu's expression was slightly solemn. He didn't expect the 10th Legion to appear at this time. It was obviously impossible to stop the charge and change the battle plan. Marshal, the 10th Legion is the ever-victorious general of the Star Dragon Federation. They have always been invincible against us demons. It's not wise for us to clash with them head-on. As the military advisor of the Lion tribe, the slightly short and skinny Lionheart knew that saying such words would affect the morale of the army. However, for the sake of the entire Lion tribe, he had to say that if they lost this battle, the Lion tribe would definitely fall into the abyss of eternal damnation. "I know what you're saying, but the Iron Wolf tribe won't let us retreat." Gu sighed. "If it weren't for the fact that the Lion King lost his original position in the demon court, our Lion tribe wouldn't have been reduced to being treated as cannon fodder." "Marshal, be careful with your words," Lionheart reminded Gu in a low voice. "It's better if we don't talk about the Lion King." "Hee, what's wrong?" Fun became the Lion King through some shameful means. Now, the entire Lion tribe is suffering because of him. As the Marshal, can't I complain? Gu laughed self-deprecatingly. 100 years ago, our Lion tribe was so mighty in the demon court. Who would have thought that an internal strife would cause our Lion tribe to fall to such a state? Lionheart sighed helplessly and said, "What happened back then has already happened. There's no point in mentioning it now. Now, the fate of our Lion tribe has been grasped in the hands of others. If we want to rise again, we need to make military contributions. The East Mountain military camp and the rich East Mountain city in front of us are the best examples." Gu looked forward with a firm gaze and said in a deep voice, "We must win this war. General, our fleet is less than 5 kilometers away from the vanguard of the Lion Division. We have already entered the bombing range." Yuna looked respectfully at Qin Ju, who was standing in front of him, waiting for his orders. "Then let's start the bombardment. Don't save your ammunition. I want you guys to empty all the ammunition in your meteor and comet weapons within half an hour." Qin Ju looked ahead with a sharp gaze and said coldly, "Under the cannon fire, all demons must be killed." Rumble! When the cannonballs hit the ground, there was a loud explosion. Under the powerful impact, all the warriors of the Lion tribe were thrown to the ground, their bodies blasted into a bloody mess. Amidst the wails, the vanguard of the Lion tribe didn't stop their charge. They were still charging forward with all their might. The sacrifice of their comrades didn't seem to have any effect on them. When the commander of the 10th Corps saw this scene through the Heaven's Eye, the expression on their faces became extremely grave. In the past, the demon race army would choose to scatter or use the skeletal warships to cover their attack. This time, however, the demon race's choice was beyond their expectations. The vanguard of the Lion tribe didn't disperse, and there are no bone warships covering the sky. Such a charge is undoubtedly suicide. This is not right. We have fought against the Lion tribe in the past, and they have never made such an irrational decision. Looking at the flag of the skeleton fleet, their commander should be Lion Gu. Lion Gu is definitely not the kind of person who would allow his subordinates to sacrifice themselves. They are not humans, they are demons. You can't look at them with common sense. After a quick and rigorous discussion, the command center made 2 decisions regarding the response of the Lion tribe. The first decision was to continue bombarding the vanguard of the Lion tribe and directly blow them up. The second decision was to send the vanguard of the Lion tribe to engage the enemy after the vanguard of the Lion tribe was destroyed. The remaining artillery fire would pour down on the middle of the Lion tribe. However, because the Bone Fleet was above the middle of the army, with the Bone warships covering them, the bombardment might not have any effect. The command center was only responsible for discussing the decision. The person who made the decision was their top boss, Qin Ju. When Yuna sent the 2 decisions to Qin Ju almost didn't hesitate to choose the first decision. He wanted to use absolute firepower to completely annihilate the Lion tribe's vanguard and then engage in close combat with the Lion tribe's central army. Obviously, in Qin Ju's opinion, the effect of injuring 10 fingers was far better than breaking 1 finger. After Qin Ju gave the order, the fleet of the 10th Legion mercilessly poured down on the vanguard of the Lion tribe. In just a short 3 minutes, the entire vanguard of the Lion tribe was completely destroyed and lost the ability to fight. On the main ship of the Bone Fleet, Lionheart couldn't help but reveal a look of heartache as he looked at his fellow tribesmen who were wailing and dying in front of him. These tribesmen who sacrifice themselves are all worthy of respect. Lionheart sighed when he heard this. The tribesmen who sacrificed themselves were worthy of respect, but also pitiful. In order to perfectly execute the battle plan and effectively kill the enemy, they had to make such sacrifices. At this time, the vanguard of the Lion tribe had been completely destroyed. The main force of the 10th Legion had also finished gathering and was preparing to land on the ground and engage the middle of the Lion tribe in a head-on confrontation. When the vanguard of 10,000 people landed on the ground and began to set up weapons and build a defensive line to meet the middle of the Lion tribe, the middle of the Lion tribe suddenly separated from the middle. A group of only 1,000 people rushed out and roared as they charged towards the vanguard of the 10th Legion. In the original plan of the 10th Legion, they had enough time to build defensive fortifications before the middle of the Lion tribe rushed to within 100 meters of them. However, the charging speed of this group of more than 1,000 people was far faster than expected. In almost a breath's time, they had crossed 1,000 meters and arrived in front of the vanguard. 1,000 people faced a 10,000 people army, but they fought with the momentum and battle formation of 1,000,000 soldiers. Amidst the battle cries, the vanguard of the 10th Legion was utterly defeated. In almost the blink of an eye, they had completely lost the ability to resist, shocking everyone. Chapter 365. Not good. The vanguard unit has been defeated. When the scene of the vanguard unit being defeated was transmitted back to the command room, everyone was shocked. A vanguard unit of 10,000 men was defeated by a 1,000-man unit of the Lion tribe. This was simply a joke. There's definitely something wrong with this 1,000-man unit. Everyone quickly realized the crux of the problem and the severity of the situation. If they were unable to stop the attack of this 1,000-man troop, they would be in a completely passive position in this battle and be led by the nose by the Lion tribe. At this time, everyone couldn't help but feel regret. If they hadn't poured all their ammunition on the vanguard unit of the Lion tribe, they could still suppress this 1,000-man unit with firepower. But now, they could only watch this 1,000-man unit of the Lion tribe run rampant on the ground. Of course, they were only regretting. They didn't have any intention of blaming Qinju, because none of them could have foreseen that the Lion tribe was hiding such a terrifying unit. It's the heart of fury. Qinju looked indifferently at the unit that was running on the ground and said to everyone, "The secret technique of the Lion tribe, the heart of fury. The angrier one is, the stronger one's strength will be. The reason the Lion tribe allowed us to slaughter their vanguard unit was to stimulate the anger in the hearts of these 1,000-man unit and let them use the heart of fury to unleash their super strength." Hearing Qinju's words, everyone finally came to a realization. They understood why the Lion tribe allowed them to bombard the vanguard. If the secret skill of fury could allow the elite warriors of the Lion tribe to unleash 150% of their strength, then because of the sacrifice of their clansmen, the secret skill of fury could allow the elite warriors to unleash 200% of their combat strength, or even more. Facing such a powerful unit, it was not difficult to accept that the vanguard unit would be defeated in one fell swoop. However, how were they going to defend against this heart of fury? One had to know that this place was less than 15 kilometers away from the East Mountain camp. With the charging speed of the Lion tribe, it would only take a few minutes for them to reach the East Mountain camp. At this time, the vanguard troops had been completely defeated, and the survivors began to flee in all directions. This furious heart troop, which only had 1,000 people, did not continue to pursue. Instead, they turned their spearhead and headed straight for the East Mountain camp. In the command room, when they saw the furious Heart army start to move towards the East Mountain camp, everyone looked at Qinju. There were only two paths in front of them. They could either think of a way to stop the furious Heart army, or they could temporarily retreat and return to East Mountain City to replenish their ammunition. As for the East Mountain camp, they would have to pray for the best. Let this Fury army go. Qinju looked ahead coldly and said indifferently, "Full speed ahead, attack the Lion Division's Central Army." Hearing Qinju's order, a staff officer immediately objected. "General, if we leave the furious Heart troops alone and directly confront the middle army of the Lion tribe, once this furious Heart troops return to reinforce us, we will be in a predicament of being attacked from both front and back. It will be extremely dangerous." The others also had the same thought. Qinju's decision was too risky. "Of course I know," Qinju said coldly. "Call Fang Yong and tell him to stall the furious Heart troops with all his might. We will defeat the Lion Division's Central Army from the front. The secret skill of fury won't last too long. Tell Fang Yong to hold on." Hearing this, everyone immediately took action and quickly told Fang Yong about the situation of the furious Heart troop. They also began to charge at full speed towards the Lion Division's Central Army. 10 kilometers in front of the East Mountain camp. On the East Mountain ship, Fang Yong looked ahead with a gloomy expression. He ordered his deputy beside him, pass down my order. The East Mountain ship will land. Everyone, gather at the canal 200 meters ahead, and build defensive fortifications. Execute immediately. With Fang Yong's order, the East Mountain ship quickly landed on the ground. Everyone quickly gathered and rushed to the canal in front of them to build defensive fortifications. Under the efficient actions of tens of thousands of people, in just a few dozen breaths of time, a sturdy defensive fortification was completed. The moment the defensive fortification was completed, smoke and dust billowed 1,000 meters ahead. A roaring army charged over. Seeing this army appear, Fang Yong ordered with a solemn expression, "Bombard!" Rumble! Dozens of meteor-class annihilation cannons opened fire. Almost instantly, the Furious Heart's troops within 1,000 meters were enveloped in artillery fire. However, the Furious Heart's troops reacted quickly. They nimbly scattered and easily dodged the first round of bombardment. Seeing this scene, Fang Yong's expression couldn't help but darken. He said angrily, "Disperse the bombardment." At this time, there were only 16 meteor-class annihilation cannons set up behind the fortifications. If they were dispersed, the range they could cover would be much smaller, and their lethality would be extremely limited. After 2 rounds of bombardment, the impact on the Furious Heart troops was minimal. Now that the Furious Heart troops had rushed to the front of the fortifications, they no longer had the chance to bombard them again. Fight! Fang Yong held an A2 laser gun and fired a shot at the leader of the Furious Heart troops at the front, but he failed to hit him. When he wanted to fire a second shot, the other party was already in front of him. Bang! A huge claw slapped Fang Yong's head in an extremely fierce manner. Fang Yong subconsciously raised the laser gun in his hand to block. The body of the laser gun, made of solid Type 4 alloy, was instantly shattered by this claw, turning into fragments that filled the sky. Fang Yong was also sent flying and fell to the ground in a sorry state. Roar! Angry roars rose and fell one after another. The Furious Heart troops broke through the fortifications almost instantly and fought with the crowd. Shouts of killing rose and fell one after another. Dongshan City. Qin Chuan walked out of the aerospace company and frowned at the people who were lining up to buy tickets. He couldn't help but have some doubts in his heart. Were these people in a hurry to escape Dongshan City? Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about these questions, a loud broadcast suddenly sounded from the broadcasting station in front of him. Cultivators in Dongshan City, the 10th Legion and the Dongshan Army have been attacked by the Demon Race Army. Now, they are fighting to protect Dongshan City. The battle is in a stalemate. As the mayor of Dongshan City, I hope to receive your help. I hope that you can contribute to the defense of Dongshan City. We really need you. Hearing this broadcast, Qin Chuan's expression changed slightly. Who could tell him what was going on? Why would the mayor of Dongshan City send an urgent request for help to the cultivators? Chapter 366. Quick! Everyone keep up! In the eastern mountain camp, anxious shouts rose and fell one after another. All the soldiers received their guns and ammunition from the logistics department and were ready to rush to the front lines. In the infirmary, Wang Bo stood in front of the window and looked worriedly at the soldiers who were nervously gathering outside. He said to Wei Zixin beside him, "Are we just going to watch? I want to do something for them." Wei Zixin looked at Wang Bo helplessly and sighed. "I can understand your feelings, but we are medics. If we go to the battlefield, we will only be a burden. There is nothing we can do. The only thing we can do is pray for everyone." "No." Wang Bo shook his head and looked at Wei Zixin seriously. "I am still a cultivator, even though I am only in the 10th level of the qi refining stage." Wei Zixin looked at Wang Bo in surprise. "You must be practicing the healing scripture that Fang Yong gave you. That is a medical skill and cannot be used in battle. I know that the healing scripture teaches medical skills, but I have a strong body and sharp reflexes. No matter how weak I am still stronger than an ordinary soldier. Wang Bo clenched his fists and said to Wei Zixin, I can't just stand by and watch my comrades fight on the front lines while I do nothing. After saying this, Wang Bo turned around and walked downstairs. Wei Zixin saw this and reached out to grab Wang Bo's arm, saying, Wait! I will go with you. Wang Bo looked at Wei Zixin in surprise. Sister Xian, what are you going to do? Of course I am going to fight alongside you, Wei Zixin said matter-of-factly. Don't forget, I am in the 11th level of the Qi refining stage. I am even stronger than you. Wang Bo heard this and said to Wei Zixin worriedly, But Sister Xian, you have never had any combat experience before. I didn't before, but I will after this. You speak as if you have a lot of experience. Wei Zixin glared at Wang Bo, Are you going or not? If you don't go now, they will be leaving. Wang Bo looked back at the large army that had finished gathering outside the window. He had no time to say anything and could only drag Wei Zixin down the stairs. Everyone, listen up. Let's go. Wait. Wang Bo shouted to the leader of the garrison troops, Brother Chong, take me with you. I want to go to the front lines with you. Chong Chong frowned when he heard that and said, Nonsense. You're a military doctor, why are you going to the front line? Big Brother Chong, a military doctor, is also a soldier and a warrior. Right now, everyone has to fight bravely to protect our country. Do you want me to hide at the back and watch all of you bleed and die? Wang Bo's tone was extremely firm. One more person means one more strength. Trust me, Brother Chong. Seeing Wang Bo's resolute attitude, Chong Chong had no choice but to agree. He had Wang Bo and Wei Zixin quickly board the vehicle and move together with the group. The convoy rumbled out of the military camp and rushed toward the front line at full speed. However, they had only advanced for about 5 kilometers when they bumped into the soldiers who had gone out earlier. Wang Bo and the others couldn't help but be shocked when they saw the disheveled soldiers. What happened? Why was it that in less than 10 minutes, the army had been defeated? When Fang Yong, who was supported by the guards, saw the arrival of the reinforcements, there was no surprise on his face. Instead, there was a look of horror on his face. He shouted loudly, Turn around and run. Many soldiers on the vehicle were shocked when they heard Fang Yong's shout. Commander Fang actually wanted them to run? Rumble. Just when everyone was shocked and puzzled, a group of soldiers suddenly appeared behind Fang Yong's defeated army. It was the Furious Hearts troops. In the previous head-on confrontation, Fang Yong's troops were crushed by the Furious Hearts troops with just one charge. After 3 back-and-forth attacks, the entire army was smashed into pieces. Fang Yong had no choice but to urgently gather the remaining troops around him and retreat. He didn't even have time to care about the East Mountain warship. Even the regular troops were defeated by the Furious Hearts troops in one fell swoop, let alone the garrison troops of the Dongshan camp, who had not been on the battlefield for a long time. Therefore, Fang Yong didn't want these people to die in vain. He wanted everyone to escape before the pursuing troops arrived. Unfortunately, the arrival of the Furious Hearts troops was faster than he imagined. Seeing that there was no chance to escape, Fang Yong could only say to everyone, Rely on the chariots for defense. Set up all the long-range weapons and bombard them. Hearing Fang Yong's order, Chong Chong immediately took action. Nearly 100 chariots formed a triangular formation, activated the heavy artillery on the vehicles, and began to bombard the charging Furious Hearts troops. The scene of hundreds of cannons firing at the same time was extremely shocking, but in fact, the impact on the Furious Hearts troops was minimal. The Furious Hearts troops still used the method of scattering to avoid the bombardment, breaking up into pieces and charging freely. Fang Yong had already seen the power of this tactic. At this time, seeing the Furious Hearts troops use the same tactic again, he could do nothing but stare. This troop is definitely the Lion Tribe's elite troop. Almost all of them are high-level shifter soldiers. coupled with their explosive secret techniques, they are enough to wipe out any of our land combat troops. If we want to win, we have to hold on and survive their explosive period. Combined with his actual experience and the clues provided by Qin Ju's command center, Fang Yong had a deep understanding of the Furious Hearts troops and knew the weakness of this troop. However, he was afraid that he and the garrison brothers behind him would not be able to hold on until the moment the Furious Hearts troops revealed their weakness. I asked you to contact the 14th Legion. What's the result? Fang Yong glanced at the contact officer, and a hint of anxiety flashed in his eyes. They answered the phone, but when I asked them to support us, they hung up. When I called again, they didn't pick up. Hearing the contact officer's words, Fang Yong punched the chariot in hatred and said angrily, "These damn bastards! Boss, let me treat your wound first." Wang Bo looked at the bloody wound on Fang Yong's chest and couldn't help but say, "If you don't treat it in time, I'm worried that it will be infected." Most of the shifters' bodies carried extremely toxic bacteria. If the wound was not treated in time, once the infection worsened, it would be troublesome. Fang Yong turned to look at Wang Bo and was stunned for a moment. "Why are you here? What are you doing in such a dangerous place?" Wang Bo grinned and said to Fang Yong, "Boss, I'm a battlefield angel. Wherever there is war, I should naturally be there." Chapter 367. Rumble. Amidst the roar of the cannon fire, the Furious Hearts had already reached the front of the chariot formation. The leader of the Furious Hearts, Lionly, was in the lead. He disobeyed the order to charge forward and kill all the enemies he encountered, then destroy the Eastern Mountain camp and head straight for Eastern Mountain City. Now, he had already defeated 2 waves of enemies in a row. The morale of the troops had been greatly boosted. As for the 3rd wave of enemies, he did not care at all. With the blessing of the Furious Heart's secret technique, they were invincible. Roar! Lionly roared and fiercely clawed at the war chariot in front of him. The war chariot flickered and a defensive array formation lit up, blocking Lionly's attack. However, Lionly didn't care. If the enemy was defeated so easily, then this battle would be too boring. The garrison only had 5,000 soldiers. Compared to the 1,000-strong Furious Heart troops, they had the advantage in terms of numbers. However, the quality of the troops was far inferior to the Furious Heart troop. At this time, relying on the powerful firepower of the war chariots, they were barely able to resist the charge of the Furious Heart troops. However, every time the Furious Heart troops launched a charge, some war chariots would be destroyed. On the other hand, the Furious Heart troops barely suffered any damage. If this continued, by the time all the war chariots were destroyed, the Furious Heart troops would at least have half of their forces left. And once their troops were annihilated, the Furious Hearts would no longer have any obstacles and would head straight for Eastern Mountain City. Eastern Mountain City's defensive power would be almost impossible to resist the Furious Hearts. When the time comes, the entire city would fall. This was not a situation Fang Yong wanted to see. "Break out!" Fang Yong gritted his teeth and said to everyone, "We can't all die here. If we die, Eastern Mountain City will become a piece of meat in their mouth. We will be at their mercy. If we can return to Eastern Mountain City alive, then Eastern Mountain City can still be saved. We can still hold on until reinforcements arrive. I don't believe the 14th Division can watch Eastern Mountain City fall." Hearing Fang Yong's words, the liaison officer said hatefully, "If the 14th Division could come to our aid, we wouldn't have fallen to this state. Fu Long deserves to die." Fu Long was the commander of the 14th Division. "All right, enough nonsense. Prepare to break out." Fang Yong looked at Wang Bo, who was standing beside him, and said to everyone, "Protect Wang Bo and Dr. Wei when we break out of the encirclement. All of you can die, but not them. Do you understand?" Yes. It was impossible for all 5,000 men to break through the encirclement. Someone had to stay behind to stop Furious Heart's troops, and this heavy responsibility was taken over by Chang Chong. As the commander, Fang Yong was the only one who had a say in Eastern Mountain City. Only when Fang Yong stepped forward could the city's defenders listen to his commands. Only then could Eastern Mountain City be defended. Only 1,000 people were chosen to break out of the encirclement. The remaining 4,000 brothers had to buy enough time for these 1,000 people to break out of the encirclement. They had to fight to the death. Wang Bo was heavily protected by the breakout troop. Looking at his brothers who were left behind on the war chariots, he couldn't help but feel his eyes turn red. For the first time in his life, he realized just how weak he was. If he was strong enough to kill all these monsters, then these brothers wouldn't have had to sacrifice themselves. Everyone could have returned alive. Wang Bo Weizixin looked at Wang Bo with red eyes and said with a choked voice, "We are indeed just a burden. Sister Xin, I don't want to be a medic anymore." Wang Bo sniffed and said, "I want to be a true warrior." "Brat, don't think about those useless things." Fang Yong said seriously to Wang Bo, "You are the most talented young man I have ever seen in the medical field. Medical skills are the most suitable for you. Leave things like charging and killing to us brute. You only need to be responsible for saving people. The better your medical skills are, the more useful and important you are to us. Do you understand?" Wang Bo gritted his teeth and said, "But, no buts. Everyone should shine in an industry that suits them." Fang Yong turned to look at the people around him and said, "Fire the cannons from the east. Once the fire stops, we will break out from the east." Rumble. With Fang Yong's order, all the heavy cannons on the war chariots adjusted their direction and collectively poured fire toward the east. The Furious Heart troops immediately dispersed and suspended their attack on the east. However, in this way, the other three sides lost their firepower support, and the defense suddenly became extremely difficult. After 3 rounds of bombardment, Fang Yong said angrily, "Stop firing and fight according to the original plan. Breakout troops, charge with me." Amidst the angry roars, the 1,000-man breakout troop quickly moved. These 1,000-man troops were the elites of the garrison troop. Every one of them was dressed in combat uniforms and equipped with powerful weapons. They were best at surprise attacks. Now that they were surrounded by scattered demons, they only needed to suppress them with their powerful firepower. There was no need for them to continue fighting. Soon, the breakout troops broke through the blockade of the Furious Heart troops and began to retreat in the direction of Dongshan City. At this time, they looked back and saw that the war chariots were shouting and roaring. Under the attack of the Furious Heart troops, the war chariots would definitely not last long. "Let's go." Fang Yong steeled his heart and no longer looked back. He urged everyone to move quickly toward Dongshan City. If they couldn't withdraw to Dongshan City in time to build defensive fortifications to resist the upcoming attack, they would be sorry for the sacrifices of their brothers behind them. Roar. At this moment, an extremely loud and clear roar rang out. The Furious Heart troops suddenly erupted at this moment, brazenly breaking through the blockade of the war chariots, rushing into the formation and beginning a massacre. Hearing the sound behind him, Fang Yong couldn't help but look back. He didn't expect that this elite troop, blessed by the secret skill of the Furious Heart, would enter the final outbreak period. Once the outbreak was over, they were bound to fall into a short period of weakness. That would be the best time for him to counterattack. However, now the garrison troops had been divided into 2, and the Furious Heart troops had already killed their way into the war chariots. It was too late for them to turn back and support. Bastard! 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 Fang Yong slapped himself fiercely. His eyes were bloodshot. If he could hold on for a while longer and didn't rush to break out, maybe he would have led his brothers to fight back against the Furious Heart troops. His brothers in the war chariots wouldn't have to sacrifice themselves. Seeing Fang Yong blaming himself so much, everyone felt extremely sad. Under the circumstances at that time, for the sake of Dongshan City, breaking out of the encirclement was the best choice. After all, none of them could predict when the Fury army would enter a period of weakness. Chapter 368. The final outburst of the Furious Heart's troops was extremely shocking. In just a short 2 minutes, nearly 4,000 garrison troops were slaughtered. Not a single one survived. Scarlet blood dyed the earth red, and the thick smell of blood drifted through the air. The broken chariot revealed a tragic and stirring atmosphere that caused one's heart to ache. But to Lion Li, all of this was the most beautiful scene in the world. He led his troops here to invade and slaughter. He wanted to burn every inch of the Star Dragon Federation's land with the flames of war. However, what he was doing now was insignificant compared to his dream. Attention, everyone! Rest here for 10 minutes. Next target, East Mountain Camp. Although Lion Li was arrogant, he wasn't arrogant enough to think that they could take down East Mountain City. East Mountain City already had a certain amount of defensive power. In addition, Fang Yong led a group of people to break out of the encirclement. At this moment, East Mountain City was definitely a tough nut to crack. In their current state, not only would they not be able to achieve anything, they might even be in danger. For them, the best choice now was to occupy East Mountain Camp and rest for a while. Scouts would keep an eye on East Mountain City and patiently wait for the arrival of the main force. As for whether the 10th Legion could defeat the main force of the Lion Division, Lion Li didn't consider it at all because he had absolute confidence in Lion Gu. While Lion Li led his subordinates to rest and reorganize, Fang Yong and the others' moods changed from their initial anger to depression. In the end, some of them even began to sob. Many of their brothers and friends had died in the war chariot formation. The pain in their hearts could not be described with words. Men don't cry easily. It's only because they haven't been hurt. Wei Zixin choked with sobs. Her eyes were completely red and swollen from crying. As a military doctor who had been in the army for many years, she could understand how these people felt. Therefore, every time she treated the wounded, she tried her best because she didn't want to see sadness on their faces. However, she could save one person, 10 people, but she couldn't save 4,000 people at the same time. I can't accept this. Wang Bo clenched his fist. His nails were deeply embedded in his palms. Blood stained his nails and fingers, but he didn't notice. What can I do even if I can't accept this? Fang Yong looked ahead and said softly, "After this war is over, I will resign. I don't deserve to continue to be a frontline commander. I have let down the brothers who trusted me." After 2 consecutive defeats, Fang Yong had completely lost his confidence and hope for the future. They were fighting on the front lines, but there were people playing politics behind their backs, scheming against each other, and watching them fall into a desperate situation. That kind of grief, that kind of helplessness, if one did not experience it personally, no one would understand. "Boss, let's go back." Wang Bo gritted his teeth and said, "I'd rather die on the battlefield than leave like this." Wang Bo's words echoed the thoughts of many people. For a warrior, the most glorious outcome was to die on the battlefield. They did not want to return to Eastern Mountain City. They wanted to fight to the death. Fang. Of course. Yes. They couldn't die. Whether it was living an ignoble existence or enduring humiliation, they had to live. If even their troops were to die, then Eastern Mountain City would be in real danger. He couldn't ignore the millions of people in Dongshan City just because of a moment's anger. He was a commander. When he made the wrong decision due to his emotions, he had to correct it. Rumble. At that moment, the roar of a war chariot engine came from the front. Everyone subconsciously looked up. Dozens of war chariots were slowly approaching. They seemed to be Dongshan City's defenders. When the distance between the two armies was less than 100 meters, the defending army was the first to stop. The war chariot opened and a group of people wearing all kinds of clothes came out. There were men and women, old and young, but without exception, all of them were cultivators. From the foundation establishment stage to the Qi refinement stage, there were all kinds of cultivators. Seeing these people appear, Fang Yong's face showed a touch of confusion. He didn't understand what these people were doing. Where did the frontline troops come from? Who's the general? A bearded man stepped forward and shouted to Fang Yong's remaining troops. I'm the company commander of Dongshan City's defenders, Xia Changyuan. Hearing Xia Changyuan's shout, Fang Yong replied loudly, Changyuan, it's me, Fang Yong. Xia Changyuan heard Fang Yong's voice and couldn't help but be shocked. He quickly ran over and asked, You lost the battle? Originally, Xia Changyuan was going to lead the cultivators behind him to support the front line. Who would have thought that not long after they set off, they would encounter allies who were defeated? Facing Xia Changyuan's question, Fang Yong looked ashamed and said in a low voice, Except for us, the rest of the brothers were all sacrificed. Xia Changyuan looked at Fang Yong in shock and asked, The demons this time are so strong? They, Wang Bo. You son of AB****. At this moment, a cry of surprise sounded. A tall figure quickly rushed into the formation and hugged Wang Bo, who was standing beside Fang Yong and covered in filth, into his arms. He was extremely excited. Wang Bo looked at the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him in astonishment. After a while, he asked in surprise, Qin Chuan? Why are you here? I saw the news and came to find you. Qin Chuan let go of Wang Bo and looked him up and down. When he found that Wang Bo was not injured or missing an arm or a leg, he sighed in relief and said, It's good that you're fine. Don't be afraid of the demons, I'll kill them all for you. Wang Bo heard this and nodded vigorously. Thinking of his brothers who had sacrificed themselves, his eyes couldn't help but redden. He choked up and said to Qin Chuan, You must help me kill those demons. Cough, cough, this is? Fang Yong looked at Qin Chuan standing beside Wang Bo and thought of a possibility, but he didn't dare to confirm it. Boss, this is the brother that I told you about before, Qin Chuan. Wang Bo proudly said to Fang Yong, the champion of the 6 Great Academies ranking tournament, the MVP award winner, the miracle youth of the Black Moon Combat Academy, Qin Chuan. Hearing Wang Bo's words, Fang Yong's face couldn't help but reveal a knowing expression. He never thought that he would meet Qin Chuan in such a way. Furthermore, it seemed like Qin Chuan was worried about Wang Bo's safety, which was why he had come to the Eastern Mountains. No wonder he was Wang Bo's best brother. Chapter 369. You guys wait for a moment. Xia Changyuan interrupted the conversation and asked Fang Yong anxiously, Commander Fang, what's the situation with the demons? How could your 10,000 regular troops and 5,000 garrison troops be defeated in such a short period of time? Fang Yong sighed and said, It's not just us, the 10,000 vanguard troops of the 10th Legion also lost to the demons. Xia Changyuan was shocked and said in disbelief, Even the invincible 10th Legion was defeated? Qin Chuan was also shocked by the news. He didn't expect the 10th Legion to be here at Dongshan Mountain and even more so for them to be defeated. I don't know the exact situation of the 10th Legion, but I do know a little about this elite group of monsters. They come from the Lion Tribe, a group of 1,000 people. They fought their way here by relying on the secret skill of fury. Fang Yong looked sadly at Xia Changyuan and said, I made the wrong decision and caused the sacrifice of my brothers in the garrison troops. With our current strength, it's difficult to deal with the Lion Tribe's elite troop. We can only rely on Dongshan Mountain City to defend. Xia Changyuan's face turned pale when he heard this. He asked in a panic, Commander Fang, do you think we can hold on? We must. Fang Yong gritted his teeth and said, The nearest legion to us is the 14th Legion. I will ask the mayor to ask General Fu Long for help. If Fu Long still refused to help after the mayor asked, his position as Legion commander would be over once Dongshan Mountain City fell. No matter how powerful his backer was, it would be impossible to protect him. Then let's quickly retreat to Dongshan Mountain City, Xia Changyuan said nervously to Fang Yong. Battalion Commander Wang and I have no experience in defending a city. We will have to rely on you, Commander Fang. As the commander of Dongshan City's garrison, Xia Changyuan was very familiar with his own abilities. In the face of such a large-scale demon invasion, if he were to command the city's defense, it would definitely fall. This important task had to be handed over to the professionals. Fang Yong was a frontline commander who fought the demons all year round. He was the best choice to command the city. All right. Fang Yong didn't refuse and immediately agreed. He had led everyone to break out of the encirclement in order to defend Eastern Mountain City. He was good friends with Battalion Commander Wang, whom Xia Changyuan had mentioned. It shouldn't be difficult for him to take over the defense of the city. Then let's go now. At this moment, Xia Changyuan wished he had wings and flew back to Eastern Mountain City. It was too dangerous to be out in the wild during this chaotic time. Commander Fang, please wait a moment. Just as everyone was about to leave, Qin Chuan suddenly called out to Fang Yong. Fang Yong turned around and looked at Qin Chuan with a puzzled expression. Qin Chuan, do you have any questions? Commander Fang, if I'm not mistaken, you're saying that we're facing the Lion Tribe, and that the elite troop that defeated you earlier used the secret skill of Fury, right? Xia Changyuan said impatiently. Is there anything you can't say on the way back? Do you have to say it in such a dangerous place? This is very important. I have to get to the bottom of this. Qin Chuan looked at Fang Yong with a serious expression, waiting for his answer. That's right. Fang Yong nodded and said, it is indeed the Lion Tribe. We received a clue from the 10th Legion that this elite troop used the secret skill of Fury. If that's the case, then I don't think we need to retreat. Qin Chuan smiled and said, we can blow the horn for a counterattack and swallow this elite troop whole. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, everyone present widened their eyes in shock. Xia Changyuan couldn't help but say to Qin Chuan, I know you're the champion of the 6 great academies ranking competition. You're very strong, but this is war, not an arena competition. Do you understand? Maybe I don't know much about commanding a battle, but I dare say that no one here knows the secret skill of Fury better than I do. Qin Chuan said to everyone with great confidence, once the secret skill of Fury is used, it can explode with great power for a short period of time. But after that, it will enter a period of weakness immediately. That's our chance to fight back. I know what you're talking about. Fang Yong took a deep look at Qin Chuan and said, but even if that troop enters a period of weakness, it's still not something we can defeat. For a long time, the Star Dragon Federation didn't rely on individual combat power to resist the invasion of the demon race. Instead, it relied on super-powerful technology. Now, everyone only had some individual combat weapons. It was almost impossible for them to annihilate that elite troop. In Fang Yong's eyes, Qin Chuan was just a college student. He knew too little about the actual situation and took things for granted. Then, Commander Fang, how much do you know about the period of weakness? Qin Chuan looked at Fang Yong seriously and said, do you know that the weakened state of the secret skill of Fury will last for 2 hours? And in the last minute before the weakened state ends, the caster will enter an absolute trough, and it will be difficult for them to use even 10% of their abilities. As long as we seize this last minute, we will definitely be able to swallow this elite troop. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, everyone's faces were filled with shock. They only knew that the secret skill of Fury would enter a weakened state after the eruption period, but as for the specific duration of the weakened state and the secret of the last minute, they didn't know. Are you sure? Fang Yong's breathing couldn't help but quicken. If what Qin Chuan said was true, once they seized this opportunity, they would definitely be able to swallow up this elite troop of lion tribe. Commander Fong, you have to calm down. Xia Chongyuan saw that Fong Yong was tempted, so he hurriedly dissuaded him. What if this is false information? May I ask, Commander Xia, what good will it do me to deceive you? Qin Chuan sneered and said, if we can't seize this rare opportunity and miss it, once the elite troop recovers, if Dongshan City falls, whose responsibility will it be? Facing the aggressive Qin Chuan, Commander Xia was speechless. He really couldn't bear this responsibility, but he also didn't believe that Qin Chuan was telling the truth. How can you prove that what you said is true? Fong Yong wasn't a man without brains. If he wanted to wipe out the enemy, he first had to make sure that the information provided by Qin Chuan was true. This is what my teacher told me, Ningya, a 4th-grade battle troop dispatcher in the Star Dragon Federation. I swear on her reputation that every word I said is true, Qin Chuan said solemnly. He wouldn't give anyone a chance to doubt him. Chapter 370. On the plains, an army of about 800 people was slowly advancing towards the eastern mountain. As the leader of this army, Lionly had an ugly expression on his face. He was exhausted and wanted to find a cool place to lie down and rest for a while to get through this disgusting period of weakness. Although the secret technique of fury is good, this period of weakness is really disgusting. Lionly raised his head and looked at the eastern mountain camp located halfway up the eastern mountain. In a short while, they would be able to reach the eastern mountain camp and have a good rest there. By the time they recovered, the battle at the front line would be almost over. Lionly, we have lost a total of 180 brothers. Lion Feng, who was walking beside Lionly, looked a little gloomy. He was really sad to have lost so many brothers along the way. This is war. There will always be people dying and sacrificing themselves. You have to accept it. After all, we have wiped out more than 20,000 humans. Compared to that, our losses are nothing. Lionly comforted Lion Feng, not taking this matter to heart. As for the vanguard troops who had died in the bombardment of the 10th Corps, Lionly did not care about them at all. Those who had died were all criminals or the old and weak. They were just cannon fodder and their deaths were not worth regretting. Lion Feng glanced at Lionly and said, "This is the reason why the Supreme Commander let you lead us. You are more cold-blooded than I am and more suitable for the battlefield." Lionly laughed and said, "You are right. You are too soft-hearted. Whether it is to your comrades or to your enemies, you are too weak." "I hate war." Lion Feng pursed his dry lips. "If possible, I hope that there will never be a war in this world. Your wish is beautiful, but reality is cruel. You don't like war and I don't like war either. I believe that no one likes war. But whether war breaks out or not, it is not up to us. It is up to the people sitting at the top." Lionly raised his hand and pointed upwards. "If it weren't for our Lion King's incompetence, we would be galloping through the hunting grounds right now, happily hunting. That kind of life would be the most comfortable." Lion Feng sighed and asked, "Why is there war?" Feng didn't understand, and surely couldn't answer this question because he didn't know either. "We're about to reach the eastern mountain camp. Our scouts are waiting for us." Lionly patted Lion Feng's shoulder and said, "All right, don't think about those complicated questions anymore. Have a good rest. There are still battles waiting for us." Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the eastern mountain camp, Lionly suddenly felt uneasy. He kept feeling that something was wrong. "Stop. Stop right there." When everyone heard Lionly's roar, they all stopped and looked at him in confusion. They didn't understand why Lionly wanted them to stop when they were so close to the eastern mountain camp and could have a good rest. Li's eyes were solemn as he looked in the direction of the eastern mountain camp. Looking at the silent eastern mountain camp, he said to everyone, "Immediately and thoroughly, Everyone scatter and retreat. Everyone looked at Lionly in surprise. They didn't understand why Lionly would give such a strange order. But at this moment, the gates of the eastern mountain camp suddenly opened and a stream of people rushed out. Kill! Amidst the angry roars, there was endless hatred and killing intent. Everyone held their weapons and charged at the new Xian troops. Seeing this scene, Lionly roared again, "Run!" This time, no one continued to question Lionly's decision. Everyone turned and began to run for their lives. In the crowd, Fong Yong was still feeling uneasy. But when he saw that the new Xian troops had no intention of fighting and were instead fleeing in all directions, he couldn't help but feel excited. Qin Chuan was right. The new Xian's secret technique's weakened state would fall into an absolute trough at the last minute. Otherwise, there was still 5 minutes before the weakened state ended. There was no need for the new Xian troops to flee. Kill! Wang Bo roared and caught up to a male lion that was running with all its might. He roared and pulled out the alloy saber at his waist, ruthlessly stabbing at the lion's buttocks. The blade entered the lion's flesh and blood splattered. The lion howled and turned around to counterattack, but Qin Chuan suddenly appeared at this moment and killed it with a punch. Seeing Wang Bo turn around to look for other shifters with his face stained with blood, Qin Chuan couldn't help but sigh. He could see that Wang Bo really hated these shifters. He really treated the sacrificed soldiers as his own brothers. Perhaps after today's events, Wang Bo would fight the shifters for the rest of his life. Qin Chuan's feelings toward the shifters were very complicated. He hated them because they had killed too many people, but he also understood them because they were forced to start a war. The initiator was the human clan. If those things hadn't happened back then, even if the human clan and the shifters couldn't coexist, it wouldn't be difficult for them to mind their own business. As a human, no matter how much Qin Chuan sympathized with the shifters, it was impossible for him to betray the human clan. Therefore, when facing these invaders, he could be merciless and kill them directly. The battle started very suddenly and ended very quickly. The entire process was unexpectedly smooth. There was almost no decent resistance. More than 600 demons were killed on the spot and dozens were captured alive. As for the rest, they were still being pursued. It was likely that they would not be able to escape. It was worth mentioning that Lionly was captured alive by Fong Yong himself. Lionly, who was tied up with restraints, was thrown to the training field of the eastern mountain camp. He lay on the ground and looked at the people around him, their faces full of killing intent. He shouted angrily, "The lion tribe is invincible!" "Shut up!" Fong Yong stared coldly at Lionly. "You have killed my fellow shifters. You will be punished by the human clan's law. I will personally send you to the military court and put you on trial." "Ha ha ha, the lion tribe is invincible." Lionly laughed, completely ignoring Fong Yong's words. Since he was captured alive, he was ready to die. It was impossible for him to lower his head and beg for mercy. "The matter here is over. I am a little worried about the 10th Division." Qin Chuan looked into the distance and said to Fong Yong, "Commander Fong, you can handle the matter here. I will go to the front line to take a look. Maybe I can help." Chapter 371. On the frontline battlefield, the setting sun was as red as blood. The 10th Legion's vanguard had already clashed with the Lion Tribe's main army. Swords flashed and shouts of battle resounded throughout the battlefield. In the air, the 10th Legion's fleet was firing at full power, ferociously attacking the Lion Tribe's skeletal warship. Not to be outdone, the Lion Tribe's skeletal warships released energy waves time and time again to resist the attacks of the cannons. They also had to protect the main army on the ground from the threat of the cannons. Compared to the Lion Tribe's main army of nearly 100,000, the 10th Legion's vanguard only had 20,000 warriors. They were relatively weak, but with the support of heavy weapons, Each of the vanguard warriors could explode with great power. Their combat ability was top-notch, and they were able to firmly suppress the Lion tribe's main army even though they were at a disadvantage in numbers. On the skeletal warship, Lion Gu looked indifferently at the battle on the ground. He asked Lionheart beside him, "Next, should we carry out the second step of the plan? Something's not right." Lionheart looked into the distance and said to Lion Gu with a slightly dignified expression, "Lionly has led the Fury army away for 2 hours, but there's been no news at all. I suspect something has happened to them." As the Lion tribe's military advisor, Lionheart has always trusted his intuition. Lion Gu's face was expressionless as he looked at the front indifferently. "There's no need to worry about the Fury army. What we need to think about now is how to win the war in front of us. Do you think we have a way out now?" Lionheart's old face couldn't help but show a touch of sadness when he heard Lion Gu's words. Yes, they have no way out. If they can't win this war, they will definitely be mocked and ridiculed by the Iron Wolf tribe when they return. They might even implicate Lion King, who has lost his position in the Demon Court. They must win this war. Let the ambushing troops on the flanks attack and kill the 10th Legion's vanguard. Rumble! The earth trembled as tens of thousands of lions suddenly appeared on the left and right sides of the battlefield. They roared and charged towards the 10th Legion's vanguard. Seeing this scene, everyone in the command center turned pale with fright. Where did these 2 troops come from? Our radar didn't detect them at all. It's the Yao's natural barrier. Our radar signal has been deceived. Soon, the command center discovered the problem. They had placed too much faith in the radar, which led to the attack of the vanguard troop. If they could not respond in time, they would definitely lose. Mobilize the air forces to provide support. We must stop the ambushes on the left and right wings and buy time for the vanguard. Qin-Ju looked coldly at the real-time image on the crystal screen and said in a deep voice, "Throw the special forces into the main battlefield and help the vanguard penetrate the middle army of the Lion Division." Hearing Qin-Ju's words, the headquarters staff officer was shocked and cried out, "General, if we continue to fight, the situation will be disadvantageous to us. We have no way out. Don't forget, there's still a furious heart troop behind us." Qin-Ju said decisively, "Carry out the order." Qin-Ju was stubborn, and the staff officers no longer spoke. They simply began to carry out Qin-Ju's orders. Soon, the flying shuttle troops gathered and split into 2, heading straight for the ambushes on both sides. The special forces also began to land, and with the help of the aircraft, they swooped down to the main battlefield. At the same time, the Lion Division's bone warships also had air troops attacking. The half-human, half-beast lion rode on a huge bat and roared as it charged towards the 10th Legion's flying shuttle troop. Obviously, they had seen through Qin-Ju's intentions and wanted to destroy his battle plan. When he saw that the Lion Division had also sent out their air troops, Qin-Ju looked at the Lion Division's bone warships with sharp eyes and said in a deep voice, "Gather power. Use the meteorite Star Destroyer cannon." Hearing Qin-Ju's order, everyone in the command center had an extremely solemn expression on their faces. The meteorite Star Destroyer cannon was extremely powerful. Once it was used, it would definitely cause heavy damage to the Lion Division. However, because the meteorite Star Destroyer cannon required too much energy, once it was used, other than the main ship, the other flying ships would definitely enter a low-energy state and would not be able to continue suppressing the Lion Division's bone warships. They would even be forced to land. At this moment, no one questioned Qin-Ju's decision. In the past, when the battle had reached a critical moment, it was always Qin-Ju who stood up and made the right decision to lead everyone to victory. This time, everyone believed that there would be no exception. The goddess of victory would still favor them. When the 7 warships led by the main ship emitted strong energy fluctuations, the Lion Division quickly sensed the intentions of the 10th Legion. The expressionless Gu's expression became extremely solemn. Qinju is going to use the Star Destroyer cannon. Is he going to fight us to the death? Gu took a deep look at the main ship of the 10th Legion in the distance. His gaze seemed to penetrate the layers of armor and saw Qinju standing in the command room with a serious expression. This woman was even more difficult to deal with than the rumors. Activate the strongest energy wave. As long as we can block the continuous fire of the Star Destroyer cannon, victory will be ours. At this moment, everyone who was fighting on the ground also sensed the change in the atmosphere above their head. The dense energy made everyone feel nervous. A round of fire from the meteorite Star Destroyer cannon would directly determine the final direction of this war. Buzz, buzz. When the light of the meteorite Star Destroyer cannon lit up, a thick layer of dark green energy waves appeared on the bone warship. After a short confrontation, 7 dazzling rays of light shot out, piercing through the sky and fiercely bombarding the bone warships. The power that erupted from the soundless collision was earth-shattering. After dozens of seconds of bombardment, 3 of the 7 bone warships were directly penetrated and completely lost their power. They swayed and fell to the ground, while the other 4 bone warships almost completely blocked the bombardment of the meteorite Star Destroyer cannon. They did not suffer any heavy damage. At the sight of this scene, everyone in the command center was in despair. In their ideal plan, after this round of bombardment, all the other battleships of the Lion tribe should be destroyed, except for the main battleship. However, there were still at least 5 skeletal battleships of the Lion tribe that still retained their fighting strength. On the other hand, other than the main ship, only 2 other warships had combat power. They could not continue to suppress the bone warship. The scales of victory were beginning to tilt towards the Lion division. Chapter 372. When Qinju saw that the Lion tribe's main ship was undamaged, he knew that they had lost this battle. Her final decision was to lose the bet. At this moment, Qinju couldn't help but think back. If they had all aimed at the main ship, would they have been able to penetrate it? If the main ship was shot down, it should have dealt a huge blow to the Lion tribe's morale. Unfortunately, this was only an if. Qinju could only think about it now. She no longer had the chance to do it again. General, the main ship still has 40% energy left. The other 6 ships have less than 10% energy left. What should we do next? The staff officer looked at Qinju with a slightly sad expression. If they completely gave up on defense and attacked with all their strength, they would be able to deal a certain blow to the Lion tribe. However, this way, the 6 ships would definitely be shot down. However, if they gave up on attacking, they would no longer be able to suppress the other party. The situation would become even worse for them. Now, no matter what choice they made, they would definitely suffer great losses and sacrifices. General, let the main ship retreat. Adjutant Yuna looked at Qinju with a complicated expression and said, "Where there is life, there is hope." The current situation could be said to be extremely disadvantageous for the 10th Legion. As the commander of the 10th Legion, Qinju was definitely a core figure. If he left the main battlefield now, it would definitely be a huge blow to the morale. However, in order to preserve the fire of the 10th Legion, nothing could happen to Qinju. Facing the adjutant's persuasion, Qinju was completely unmoved. He was expressionless as he looked at the bone warship and ordered, "Open the barracks and continue to send troops into the main battlefield." In addition to the 7 warships, the 10th Legion's fleet also had 4 carrier airships and 5 barracks airships. Each barracks airship carried 10,000 soldiers. Now they had sent 30,000 soldiers into the battlefield one after another. At this moment there were only 20,000 soldiers left. If all of them were sent into the battlefield, it would be fine if they won, but if they lost, the 10th Legion would no longer exist. Qinju's move was to stake everything on a single throw to win this war. At this time, the 10th Legion had no way out. They would either win this war or be completely annihilated. When the last two barracks of the 10th Legion began to send troops into the battlefield together, the Lion tribe clearly felt a huge pressure. At this moment, Gu, who was overseeing the entire situation on the Bone warship, was not worried at all. Instead, he laughed. Ju is already at his wits' end. Now that she's staking it all, she's just an arrow at the end of its flight. Our Lion tribe will definitely win this battle. Lionheart smiled in relief. As long as they won this battle and annihilated the Star Dragon Federation's 10th Legion, the pressure the Lion tribe faced in the Demon Court would be greatly alleviated. It was definitely a good thing for them. Ju sat on a chair and looked at the crystal screen expressionlessly. Looking at the warriors who were fighting bravely on the ground, she couldn't help but sigh softly. Yuna, get ready. Have the guards follow me and attack. Yuna, who was standing to the side, was shocked when she heard this. General, it's not the end yet. There's no need to wait until the end. If we attack now, we can still boost our morale and increase our chances of victory. If we attack when we're powerless, it will only make us look more tragic. Ju took a deep breath and said, I, Ju, the Supreme Commander of the 10th Army, will definitely not be the last person to sacrifice in the 10th Army. Hearing this, Yuna was moved and said loudly, This subordinate is willing to follow General to the death, and will fight 100 battles without regrets. Let's go. Just as Ju stood up and was about to leave the command center, someone suddenly walked in quickly and whispered a few words to Yuna. Yuna, who had received the news, looked at the person in surprise. Then, she turned to look at Qinchuan and said, General, the scouts have reported that they have captured a person who claims to be Qinchuan. They have verified that it is indeed Qinchuan. Hearing Qinchuan's name, Ju couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He subconsciously asked, Qinchuan? Why is he here? Not waiting for Yuna to answer, Ju seemed to have thought of something and immediately said to Yuna, Bring him here. With Ju's order, the tightly bound Qinchuan was quickly brought to the command center. Looking at Qinchuan standing in front of him, Ju frowned and asked, Why are you here? Qinchuan, who was tied up, grinned and said, Before we chat, why don't you untie me first? It's too dangerous here. I'll send someone to send you out of here. Ju ordered his men to untie Qinchuan and said in a deep voice, This is not a place you should be. Why shouldn't I be here? Qinchuan smiled and said indifferently, Before I came here, I had already helped Commander Fong defeat the Lion tribe's Heart of Fury and captured nearly 100 captives. Hearing Qinchuan's words, everyone in the command center was shocked. Originally, they thought that the Heart of Fury was running amok near Eastern Mountain City, but they didn't expect that they had already been defeated and even captured many captives. Looking at Qinchuan's appearance, it seemed that he had contributed greatly in this battle. The Heart of Fury only has 1,000 people. It can't be compared to the current battlefield. Ju frowned and said, I still insist on my attitude and send you away. After saying this, Ju turned around and walked out of the command center. She wanted to lead the army to attack and boost their morale. Qinchuan saw Ju turn around and leave. He chuckled and said, If I say that I have a way to help you repel the Lion tribe, would you believe me? Before Qinchuan's voice fell, Ju had already turned around and looked at him with a sharp gaze. He asked very seriously, Are you sure? I've observed from the edge of the battlefield before. Now that the 10th Legion has fallen into a desperate situation, there's no other way. Other than trusting me, do you have any other way? Qinchuan looked at Ju seriously and said, So you can only trust me. Ju couldn't help but fall silent when he heard this, because Qinchuan was right. She no longer had any way to salvage the situation. Now, Qinchuan's words were equivalent to her last life-saving straw. No matter what, she had to hold on to it tightly. After thinking for a while, Qin Ju looked up at Qin Chuan and said, "We don't have much time left. If you have any ideas, just say it. I'll get everyone to cooperate with you." When Qin Chuan heard this, he looked at Qin Ju meaningfully and said, "I need time, at least 20 minutes. Please make sure that the warriors who are fighting outside hold on. As for manpower, I think you alone should be enough." Chapter 373. BZZT BZZT BZZT. On the battlefield, a soldier held an A-type laser gun and fired 3 consecutive shots at the lion-faced enemy in front of him. 3 beams of light flashed and hit the enemy's head, penetrating it on the spot. Brain matter mixed with blood flowed out. Just as the soldier was about to look for the next opponent, a sharp bone knife ruthlessly pierced his chest and mercilessly took his life. Such a scene played out continuously on the battlefield. There were people falling every moment, and blood dyed the ground dark red. Everyone seemed to have become tireless war machines. There were only enemies in their eyes, and they kept fighting until they were killed. Only then could they stop. They looked at the dark sky with tired eyes, and then slowly closed their eyes. On the skeletal warship, Lion Bro looked at the battlefield on the ground. He watched as his clansmen fell one after another. He sighed softly and shook his head helplessly. "Our soldiers are all brave. The enemy is also brave. They are all respectable people." Lionheart nodded in agreement. He then looked at the dead clansmen with a regretful gaze and said, "They should have lived a happy and free life. But because of the Lion King's wrong choice, they have to bear a heavy burden that they should not have to bear. I am really heartbroken." If it were possible, Lionheart really wished that they were in the hunting grounds of the clan. Good men would compete with each other in hunting techniques, and let the sound of laughter replace the roar of gunfire. The Lion King? With Lion Finn's responsibility, is he really qualified to be called the Lion King? In my eyes, he is just an idiot in the realm of the Demon King. Lion Bro sneered. "I really don't know what kind of madness those old fellows in the clan had. They actually supported such an idiot to ascend to the throne." "Supreme Commander, be careful with your words," Lionheart reminded. "Be careful of the ears of the walls. I have already come this far. I have nothing to fear." Lion Bro looked into the distance with deep eyes. "If he wants to kill me because I said a few words of truth, then let him. When I am dead, let him, the high and mighty Lion King, personally lead the army." Lionheart heard this and looked at Lion Bro with a subtle gaze and asked, "Do you still miss the previous king?" "I don't miss it. I miss it very much." Lion Goo slowly turned to look at Lionheart and said, "He is the real king. He has the demeanor of an invincible king. He has the spirit and courage of a king. But he disappeared. Ever since he started that war with the Rat Clan, he disappeared." Lionheart sighed and said, "If he still hasn't healed the injury to his foundation, he might be dead by now." "He can't be dead. He must still be alive." Lion Ancient looked at Lionheart seriously and said, "The news of us winning this war will spread throughout the human world. He will definitely hear this news. I will wait for him to come find me. When that time comes, I will assist him to ascend to the throne again." Lionheart looked at Shurgu in shock and asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure." Shurgu was extremely serious. "Only he can lead us to a glorious future." "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure." Qin Chuan looked at Qin Ju with an extremely serious expression and said, "Only in this way will we have a chance of winning. No, this is too risky." Qin Ju shook his head and said, "If you really do this, you might die. According to my plan, we have a chance of winning, and I might not die. If we don't follow my plan, then we will definitely lose. Perhaps I will be chased to death as a deserter. Which one do you want to choose? Even if we don't use your plan, we might not lose. You know that there's no other way to salvage the situation. Why aren't you willing to give it a try?" "Because I don't want you to die." Qin Chuan looked deeply at Qin Ju and said, "Back in the Elf City, you let me make my own choice in the face of Lion Duke's request. Now that I want to make my own choice, you are stopping me. Can you tell me the reason?" Qin Ju opened his mouth but didn't say anything. "Everyone can be sacrificed. Is it only the Qin family that's special?" Qin Chuan sneered. "If I was just Qin Chuan, a simple Qin Chuan, wouldn't I not even have the qualifications to see you? Not to mention discussing tactics here." "I didn't mean that," Qin Ju explained for himself. He wasn't a selfish person. "It's best if you don't mean that. Then do as I say." Qin Chuan didn't give Qin Ju a chance to refute and made the final decision. Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated and helpless expression. "Why are you doing this? This won't do you any good." "I'm just doing what I have to do. If I can't defeat these demons here, you know better than me what will happen to Eastern Mountain City, don't you?" Qin Chuan smiled and said, "I'm not a great person like you, nor am I a hero. I just want to do what I think is right. That's all." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Qin Ju couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded. It was as if she had returned to a few decades ago. That man had said the same thing before. They were just doing what they thought was right. Rumble! The skeletal warships fired their energy cannons again and again, targeting the 7 warships of the 10th Legion. At this time, facing the attacks of the skeletal warships, only the main ship of the 10th Legion had the ability to counterattack. The rest of the warships could only defend. The light blue defensive array glyphs were flickering, as if they could break at any time. Finally, under the powerful attacks of the skeletal warships, the defensive array formation of one of the warships on the left wing finally lost its energy support and completely shattered. The energy cannons fired by the skeletal warships fiercely bombarded the warships, making a rumbling sound. Thick black smoke rose as the warships began to fall to the ground, slanting towards the middle of the Lion Division. Obviously, this warship wanted to cause as much damage as possible to the Lion Division before it was completely destroyed. Seeing this scene, many warriors of the Lion Division on the skeletal warships showed disdainful and mocking smiles on their faces. With the impact of this warship, it couldn't do much to the middle of the Lion Division. To put it bluntly, it was like a stone falling into a lake, causing some ripples. In the command center of the main warship, Qin Ju stood in front of the crystal screen, nervously and worriedly looking at the warship that was sinking and falling to the ground. He said softly, "This time it's up to you, Qin Chuan." Chapter 374. On the Bone flagship, when Lion Gu saw that the 10th Legion's battleship had been shot down, he couldn't help but smile. He said to Lionheart, "This is just the beginning. Next, we will enjoy more firework." Compared to Lion Gu's excitement, Lionheart was a little suspicious. Under their attack, the downed battleship was not their main target. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have been shot down so easily. "Marshal, something seems to be wrong." Lionheart thought for a moment and finally decided to tell Lion Gu about his doubts. "There's something wrong with this battleship." Lion Gu frowned slightly and asked, "Are you sure?" "I'm not sure, but I think there's something wrong with it." Lionheart couldn't be sure, but on the battlefield, any small change could cause great changes, so it was better to be cautious. Hearing Lionheart's words, Lion Gu didn't hesitate and immediately ordered, "Have all the battleships change their target and destroy this battleship in the air." No matter what secrets there were on this battleship, as long as it was completely destroyed, all the conspiracies would be exposed. With Lion Gu's order, all the bone battleships turned their spearheads and chose the descending battleship as their target. This change was immediately discovered by Qin Ju, who was in the command center of the main ship. Seeing that the bone battleship had changed its target, Qin Ju's expression changed slightly. He immediately picked up the communicator beside him and said loudly, "Qin Chuan, our plan has been seen through." It doesn't matter, everything is going according to my plan. Next, please enjoy my performance. As Qinchuan's voice fell, the slowly descending airship suddenly emitted a buzzing sound. Its engine was fully activated, and from bottom to top, it charged straight at the Lion Tribe's bone fleet. Seeing this scene, the expressions on Lion Gu and Lionheart's faces suddenly became serious. Their guess was right, there was indeed something wrong with this battleship. At this moment, the skeletal warships were already glowing with green light after accumulating power. They were ready to bombard the oncoming warships and destroy them completely. But at this moment, a thunderbolt suddenly fell from the sky and struck the deck of the warships. Rumble! At this moment, the sound of thunder completely covered the sound of artillery fire on the battlefield, attracting everyone's attention. Gu's eyes were filled with shock as he looked at the lightning pillar that was 2 meters in diameter descending from the sky. He cried out involuntarily, "What is that? Why would there be lightning falling from the sky and connecting that battleship to the sky?" Who could tell him what the 10th Corps had done? It wasn't just Lionheart who was shocked. Even the far-sighted and knowledgeable Lionheart was deeply shaken by this scene. He had never seen such a terrifying scene before. Such a violent power of thunder was enough to destroy everything. Before the energy cannons shot out by the skeletal warships could approach the battleships, they were intercepted by the lightning pillars that fell from the sky and swallowed up without a sound, as if they had never been there. This strange scene made everyone's scalp tingle and their bodies tremble uncontrollably. In the command center, Yuna looked at the scene in front of her in shock and muttered, "What did he do?" "I don't know either." Qin Ju took a deep breath and said, "But I know that he will be our hero." On the battleship, Qin Chuan stood in the middle of the deck and looked at the thick lightning pillar in front of him. He couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Although all of this was caused by him, he didn't expect the scene to be so shocking. This is only a level 3 battle formation. If it was a level 4 battle formation, how terrifying would it be? Qin Chuan muttered in a low voice. His eyes shone with unprecedented excitement. This was the power he controlled now. It was enough to destroy the heavens and the earth. Kacha, kacha! Just as Qin Chuan's emotions were surging, the battleship let out a sound of being overwhelmed. A huge crack appeared on the deck. Looks like this is the limit. Qin Chuan glanced at the deck and then looked at the Bone Fleet not far away. When he saw that the Bone Fleet was showing signs of retreating, he couldn't help but grin and say, "Are you ready to accept my gift?" Whoosh! Qin Chuan's body suddenly left the deck and flew into the air, landing on the ground. He looked up at the battleship that was flying away and shouted angrily, "All-directional thunder prison, activate!" As Qin Chuan's shout rang out, the sky suddenly became gloomy. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and the battleship fell apart. The violent energy lost its carrier and tangled into a chaotic ball of mixed energy in the air. It suddenly expanded and then exploded. Rumble! Amidst the violent rumbling, the world became the home of thunder. The surging and violent energy swept through everything it touched, and even space trembled. The bone battleship that was unable to get away from the explosion range in time was almost destroyed under the impact of this powerful force. The sound of wailing, angry roars, and all other sounds were swallowed up by this unstoppable force and disappeared completely. On the battlefield, everyone stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. They looked at the explosion that was still spreading with extremely shocked eyes. Their minds were blank. Even a master of the exceptional gold core realm might not be able to produce such a terrifying force. When the explosion that lasted for several seconds finally ended, the scene in the sky reappeared in front of everyone's eyes. What made everyone speechless was that apart from the main ship that was on the verge of collapse, all the other warships of the originally huge fleet of skeletons had disappeared. That terrible explosion almost destroyed the entire Bone Fleet. On the broken deck, Lion Gu's eyes were about to split open. He stared at the figure in the distance who was quickly falling to the ground and said angrily, "It's him! It's him! I'm going to kill him!" "Commander, calm down." The battered Lionheart stopped the enraged Lion Gu. "We have to retreat. Once you're stopped by Qinju, we'll be in danger today." After losing the Bone Fleet, they had lost their chance of winning and could no longer resist the bombardment of the 10th Legion. If they didn't retreat now, they might never be able to leave. Hearing Lionheart's words, Lion Gu roared angrily and spat out a mouthful of blood. "The fleet was destroyed by me. I'm a sinner of the Lion tribe. A sinner." Looking at the sorrowful and angry Lion Gu, Lionheart also felt heartache. Without the fleet, their situation in the demon court would become even worse. Chapter 375. Woo Woo Woo. A low sound of a bugle horn rang out on the battlefield. It was the sound of the Lion tribe's retreat. At the same time, the 10th Legion also retreated. They didn't take advantage of the situation to chase after the retreating Lion tribe. Instead, they gathered all their strength to protect the fleet. As for Qinchuan, who fell from the sky, Qin Ju rushed over and hugged him when he was still a distance away from the ground. Looking at the pale Qinchuan, Qin Ju couldn't help but say excitedly, "You succeeded, we won." Qinchuan grinned and said, "That's right, we won." Qin Ju was so excited that he couldn't control himself. He leaned over and kissed Qinchuan's cheek, leaving an eye-catching kiss mark on Qinchuan's cheek. "Hey, even though you're my elder, you can't take advantage of me while I'm powerless to retaliate." Qinchuan grinned. He was a little embarrassed to be kissed all of a sudden. Qin Ju was stunned for a moment, then he pursed his lips and said, "I didn't fulfill the responsibility of an elder. Logically speaking, it should be her, the elder, protecting Qinchuan. But now, it was Qinchuan who was protecting her, and even more people. She really felt sorry for Qinchuan and shouldn't let Qinchuan bear so much responsibility. This is my own choice." Qinchuan looked at the retreating Lion tribe in the distance and said with a smile, "In this battle, your 10th Legion not only blocked the Lion tribe and protected Eastern Mountain City, but also destroyed the Lion tribe's fleet in one fell swoop. Your name will definitely shake the world. This is your credit." Qin Ju shook his head and said, "I can't take your credit. I'm not a soldier." Qinchuan laughed and said, "Besides, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. My performance in the 6 Great Academies ranking competition was already enough to attract attention. I'm afraid I won't be able to take it if this happens again." Seeing that Qin Ju still wanted to say something, Qinchuan hurriedly said, "Don't decline unless you don't treat me as one of your own." Qinchuan indeed didn't have any good impression of the Qin family, but he didn't hate Qin Ju because Ningya had told him a lot of things about Qin Ju. Back then, the reason why Qin Ju had entered the 10th Army was because Qin Yiming had expelled his mother, Qin Qing, from the family. Qin Ju's objection was ineffective, so in a fit of anger, he left the Qin family and joined the army. Although Qin Ju's actions didn't change anything, at least she had expressed her attitude. Just based on this, it was difficult for Qinchuan to hate her. "Alright, I'll take the credit for you this time, but the reward will definitely be yours." Qin Ju said seriously to Qinchuan, "You can tell me whatever you want. I will make a request to the military." "That's great." Qinchuan smiled. "I want too many things. I'll give you a list when I'm done resting." Qin Ju nodded. Amidst the cheers of victory, he carried Qinchuan and headed straight for the main ship that had already landed on the ground. They would temporarily rest here and wait for Eastern Mountain City to transport energy over before returning to Eastern Mountain City to reorganize. Qinchuan lay on the bed in Qin Ju's bedroom. Looking at the simple decoration style in front of him, he said to Qin Ju, who was sitting at the side, "I thought your room would be very iron-blooded, but I didn't expect it to be a refreshing style." I like it simple. I don't like to dress up too much. Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan, who was lying on the bed, and asked, "How is your body?" "I'll be fine after resting for a while." Qin Chuan smiled and asked, "Don't you have anything else to do? Let the people below do the rest. For me, the most important thing now is to see you get better with my own eyes." Qin Ju looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, "Where did you learn the secret skill of fury?" When Qin Chuan heard this, he looked at Qin Ju in surprise and asked, "How did you know?" "I've fought with the people of the lion tribe before. I know the secret skill of fury very well." Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression and said, "And the dragon form you used in the 6 Great Academies ranking competition is the same as this secret skill of fury. They are both secret skills of the demon race, right?" After being exposed by Qin Ju, Qin Chuan couldn't continue to hide it. He could only nod and say to Qin Ju, "You're right. These are indeed secret skills of the demon race. You should have guessed that the secret skill of fury was taught to me by the Lion Duke." Hearing Qin Chuan admit it, Qin Ju took a deep breath and asked, "So, why did he teach you the secret skill of fury?" Qin Ju didn't believe that the Lion Duke would be so kind as to teach Qin Chuan such a powerful secret skill for no reason. There must be some kind of deal. "I can't tell you this for now." Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said, "Everyone has their own secrets, and I am no exception." Qin Ju was silent for a moment, then said to Qin Chuan, "Sorry, I shouldn't have asked so much. There's no need to apologize. I know you're just worried that I'll be used by the Lion Duke." Qin Chuan smiled and said, "When the time is right, I'll naturally tell you the truth. Then let's talk about today's plan. How did you do it?" Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan curiously. "Even I would find it difficult to use such terrifying power. If I only relied on the explosion of the battleship's energy, it would definitely not be enough." Under Qin Chuan's arrangement, Qin Ju concentrated the energy of all the spaceships of the 10th Army on that battleship. Even the main ship only left a minimum of 3% of its energy. This way, the energy concentrated on that battleship was as high as 180%. Once it exploded, the power would definitely be extremely terrifying. Fortunately, in the process of luring the enemy, the energy cabin was not hit. Otherwise, Qin Chuan would definitely be buried in the explosion. It was also because of this that Qin Ju had strongly opposed Qin Chuan's plan. With Qin Ju's strength at the perfected gold core stage, he could easily sink a bone battleship, or even 2. However, this would take time, and Qin Chuan's attack had almost instantly destroyed an entire fleet of bones. Such power was simply too terrifying. The method I used was nothing special. It was just a talisman array. Qin Chuan smiled and explained to Qin Ju, "I used the secret skill of fury to increase my strength. I forcefully inscribed the 3rd-level battle formation, Thunder Prison, on the deck of the battleship and used the power of thunder to detonate the energy cabin on the battleship. That's why such an earth-shattering explosion occurred." Hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, Qin Ju couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. "Thunder Prison? 3rd-level battle formation? You're only at the early foundation establishment stage, yet you can already inscribe a 3rd-level battle formation?" Qin Chuan grinned and said, "I was just lucky to succeed. The time and conditions required are too harsh. If I were to do it again, I might not succeed." Chapter 376. Ever since Ningya taught Qin Chuan the inscription method of the all-directional thunder prison, Qin Chuan had tried to inscribe the talisman array many times, but he had never succeeded. As for the reason for his failure, it was very simple. Qin Chuan was not strong enough to support him in inscribing the complete talisman array. And this time, because of the Furious Heart Troop, Qin Chuan was inspired. He thought of using the secret skill of the Furious Heart to increase his strength and then inscribe the talisman array. If this attempt succeeded, it would definitely become another of his killing moves. It was also because of this that Qin Chuan had the confidence to come to the front line and tell Qin Ju that he had a way to defeat the Lion tribe. Perhaps the power of the all-directional Thunder Prison alone was not enough to defeat the Lion tribe's Bone Fleet, but if the energy explosion was added, the Bone Fleet would definitely be heavily damaged. This plan had a huge gamble. If it was any other time, Qin Ju would definitely not use such a battle plan because there were too many accidents and too many risks. However, in this situation where there was no way out, she could only choose to believe in Qin Chuan and fight to the death. Fortunately, they succeeded. The battleship successfully approached the Bone Fleet. The power of the all-directional Thunder Prison and the power of the energy explosion were stacked together, unleashing a power greater than 1 plus 1 greater than 2. In an instant, the Bone Fleet was destroyed. However, Qin Chuan's dream of using the all-directional Thunder Prison as another killing move of his had failed. This was because with his current strength, if he wanted to inscribe the all-directional Thunder Prison, not only would he need to use the secret skill of the Furious Heart, but he also needed to inscribe it for 18 minutes without any interference. Who would give Qin Chuan so much time and conditions to inscribe the all-directional Thunder Prison during a battle, whether it was the arena or a real battle? The success this time had a lot to do with luck. If it wasn't for the critical moment of life and death, Qin Chuan wouldn't want to take such a risk. You came to Eastern Mountain this time for Wang Bo, right? Qin Ju had investigated Qin Chuan before, so he naturally knew about the relationship between Qin Chuan and Wang Bo. If not for this, she would not have personally honored Wang Bo. Yes, I'm here to look for him. Some time ago, he was watching my competition in Star Dragon City. Later, because of the war, he left early. During this period of time, I kept seeing news about Eastern Mountain. I couldn't contact him, so I was a little worried, so I came to take a look. Qin Chuan smiled and said, I didn't expect you and the 10th Legion to be here. As a mobile force, the 10th Legion will always appear wherever there is a war. Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan and explained, originally, there was no need for the 10th Legion to take action in this battle. However, because the 14th Legion station nearby did not make a move, I led the 10th Legion to the front lines. Qin Chuan asked curiously, why hasn't the 14th Division done anything? What are they doing? It's a long story, but I'll take care of this matter. They have to give me a reasonable explanation. Qin Ju pursed his lips and said to Qin Chuan, actually, the military isn't all unyielding men who are willing to shed blood for the Federation. There are also some trash who like to scheme against each other. Qin Chuan understood a little. It seemed like the 14th Division was the trash that Qin Ju was talking about. Right now, the war is over. Oh right, now that the battle has temporarily ended, I will submit the battle report soon. When the time comes, the military will definitely reward me. Tell me what you want now, Qin Ju said seriously to Qin Chuan. Try your best to make your request boldly. We have won a great victory in this battle, and our achievements will definitely shock the entire Federation. The military will definitely not be stingy in terms of reward. Qin Chuan grinned and said with a smile, if I want a Thunder Spirit Stone, a top-grade Thunder Spirit Stone, can it be done? In daily transactions and cultivation, cultivators used low-grade and middle-grade Spirit Stones the most. High-grade Spirit Stones were relatively rare, and top-grade Spirit Stones were even more difficult to come by. Today, when inscribing the all-directional Thunder Prison, if Qin Chuan could hold a top-grade Thunder Spirit Stone, the time needed would be greatly reduced and the power would be stronger. Therefore, in terms of requirements, Qin Chuan really wanted to obtain a top-grade Thunder Spirit Stone. At that time, whether it was for cultivation or for inscribing talismans, it would be of great help to him. After hearing Qin Chuan's request, Qin Ju couldn't help but be stunned. She didn't expect Qin Chuan to actually want a top-grade Thunder Spirit Stone. No matter what it was, as long as it was related to the word top grade, It would be an extremely precious existence. Qin Ju had only used 2 top-grade spirit stones since he started cultivating, and they were the ones without attributes. He had never seen top-grade thunder spirit stones before. The military might have them, but they definitely weren't many. Seeing the astonished expression on Qin Ju's face, Qin Chuan smiled and asked, "What, is this request too much?" "It's not too much. I'm just worried that the military won't be able to meet your request." Qin Ju thought for a moment and explained to Qin Chuan, "Top-grade spirit stones are extremely rare. As far as I know, the spirit stone mines of our Star Dragon Federation rarely produce top-grade spirit stones. Most of the top-grade spirit stones were brought out by explorers from the ruins of the universe, and they all have no attribute. Therefore, I can't be sure if the military has any top-grade thunder spirit stones in storage." Hearing Qin Ju's explanation, Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment. He didn't expect top-grade thunder spirit stones to be so rare. He had originally thought that he could ask for 2 more, but now it seemed that it would be difficult to even get one. "If you don't have top-grade thunder spirit stones, then top-grade spirit stones without attributes are also fine." Qin Chuan decided to change his request. "If possible, I also want a set of sword technique." "Sword techniques?" Qin Ju asked curiously. "You know how to use a sword?" "No, but I'm prepared to learn." Ever since the runic sword had made a move in the 6 Great Academies ranking competition, Qin Chuan had been trying to communicate with the runic sword. Although the effect wasn't good, the runic sword would occasionally give some reactions. Qin Chuan wanted to learn sword techniques because he wanted to communicate with the runic sword in the future. "Actually, our Qin family's sword techniques are very strong." Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated expression and said, "I can teach you." "That's not necessary." Qin Chuan shook his head and said, "I'm not interested in the Qin family's things." "All right, I'll make a request of you to the military." Qin Ju didn't mention the Qin family again. Instead, he instructed Qin Chuan, "Rest well here. I'll contact the military and report the results of the battle." Chapter 377. Ever since the day the war broke out in East Mountain, whether it was the military or the commoners, everyone had been paying close attention to the war in East Mountain. It could be said that the war in East Mountain had affected the minds of many people, especially the residents of East Mountain City. They were so worried that they couldn't sleep at night. They were afraid that the soldiers at the front lines wouldn't be able to stop the attack of the demon race, and that East Mountain City would be broken through by the demon race. Their families would be destroyed. As the sky gradually darkened, the residents of East Mountain City, who had been busy the whole day, were eating dinner worriedly, worrying about the future of East Mountain City. All the crystal screens in East Mountain City that were broadcasting programs suddenly inserted a news report. The mayor of East Mountain City appeared in front of everyone and excitedly said to all the viewers who were watching the live broadcast, "Victory at the front lines! The 10th Legion has wiped out the Lion Tribe's Bone Fleet, killed more than 60,000 enemies, and won a complete victory. The demon race has been defeated and East Mountain City is safe." When they heard the news, the residents of East Mountain City were stunned for a moment. However, everyone's faces immediately revealed an extremely pleasantly surprised expression. The battle at the front lines had been won, and East Mountain City was safe. The residents of East Mountain City, who were walking on the streets, excitedly discussed the news just now. Everyone's faces were filled with joy. "We won. It was the 10th Legion that defeated the demon race. The 10th Legion is invincible. Commander Qin Ju is invincible. Ha ha ha, we won. That's great, that's great. Long live the 10th Legion." At this moment, the residents of East Mountain City were in a state of celebration. They enthusiastically cheered the name of the 10th Legion, cheered the name of Qin Ju, and thanked the warriors who had risked their lives to protect East Mountain City. While East Mountain City was in a state of celebration, the East Mountain Camp was in a state of solemnity. Everyone's expression was extremely solemn because they were carrying out a soul-summoning ceremony. Fang Yong stood under the soul-summoning platform and looked at the cultivator who was chanting the soul-summoning incantation on the platform. He couldn't help but reveal a sorrowful expression. Although they had won the battle today, they had also paid a painful price. The East Mountain Army had sacrificed more than 14,000 soldiers, and the 10th Legion had sacrificed nearly 30,000 soldiers. This victory had been won with the blood of more than 40,000 soldiers. How could Fang Yong be happy? Return of the heroic souls. Accompanied by a loud cry, a gale suddenly blew through the Eastern Mountain Camp. It was as if someone was crying in the wind, mourning the heavens and earth. Return of the heroic souls. Under the constant calls of the soul summoner, the sound of the wind in the camp gradually became softer. The whimpering sound gradually turned into a blurry singing, as if singing the victory of the war and offering heartfelt blessings to everyone. Heroic souls are immortal, they are only in eternal slumber. The soul summoner sighed and turned to look at Fang Yong, who was standing below the stage. Fang Yong said, "Commander Fang, this war has been going on for too long. Most of the souls of the sacrificed soldiers have already scattered with the wind. I have only managed to summon a little over 1,000 souls." Fang Yong couldn't help but reveal a pained expression when he heard the soul summoner's words. They had sacrificed more than 40,000 soldiers, but only a little more than 1,000 heroic souls had been summoned back. This kind of loss was too heavy. Wang Bo looked at the pained expression on Fang Yong's face and said in a low voice, "Boss, my condolences." Wang Bo could understand Fang Yong's feelings. Every time he treated critically wounded soldiers, they would always say that they weren't afraid of death. This was because even if they died, they could still become heroic souls and continue to fight to protect their country. At that time, he thought it was just a joke. But when it really happened, he realized that not all sacrificed soldiers had the chance to become heroic souls. "Commander Fang, the 10th Legion is back." Hearing this shout, everyone present subconsciously looked up at the sky. The 10th Legion's fleet was slowly flying towards the Eastern Mountain Camp. Seeing the 10th Legion's fleet return, Wang Bo couldn't help but think of Qinchuan. In order to protect Eastern Mountain City, in order to win this war, he gave his all. "Wang Bo, go see Qinchuan." Fang Yong looked at Wang Bo with a complicated expression. "He is our hero. Qinchuan, are you okay?" Wang Bo quickly walked into the bedroom and saw Qinchuan lying on the bed. He lifted the blanket, and when he saw that Qinchuan wasn't missing an arm or a leg, he breathed a sigh of relief. "I was prepared to give you a prosthetic limb, but it looks like there's no need for that now." Qinchuan was a little speechless when he heard this. He said to Wang Bo, "You can't wait for me to die, can you? Prosthetic limb? Why don't you just summon my soul?" When he heard Qinchuan mention soul summoning, the smile on Wang Bo's face instantly disappeared. He sat by the bed and looked at Qinchuan with sad eyes. "Brother, we just performed a soul summoning ceremony at the camp. More than 40,000 of our brothers were sacrificed, but in the end, only a little more than 1,000 souls were summoned back." Hearing this, Qinchuan's expression became a little sad. He didn't expect that after sacrificing so many soldiers, only a little more than 1,000 souls were summoned back. Looking at the sad expression on Wang Bo's face, he sighed and said to Wang Bo, "This is the cruelty and ruthlessness of war. Every victory must be accompanied by sacrifice. We are lucky, they are unlucky. I'm very sad. What should I do?" Wang Bo looked at Qinchuan with red eyes and said, "If it weren't for you today, we might have to sacrifice even more people." "Don't say that. Every one of us is working hard to win this war. It's our contribution that we can win this war. No one has ever been able to change the entire war situation with their own strength. I'm not a great hero. I'm just an ordinary person who yearns for victory. Why must there be war in this world? Wang Bo gritted his teeth and held back his tears. If we humans and demons can live in peace, will there be no more wars? Why can't we live in peace? Qin Chuan looked at Wang Bo seriously and asked, Wang Bo, if one day I tell you that I have a way to stop wars and prevent them from happening again, will you believe me? I will believe you. Wang Bo nodded almost without hesitation. He believed that Qin Chuan had the ability to do so. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said solemnly to Wang Bo, the current me is not qualified to do such a thing, but in the future, I will definitely be able to do it. This is my promise to you. I will let you see with your own eyes the arrival of peace in this world. Some things had to be done by someone. Since others couldn't do it, then let him do it. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.